In the year 211 of the king's reign, a story began when a boy turned 15 years old. The story is something the protagonist guessed that he would never forget, even if he wanted to. Of all the things that happened in a remote hut where he had spent his day of humiliation, one moment stood out. The door opened, greeting his Noein, telling him how it had been a long time. Showing no affectionate reaction, Noein responded and agreed with his father. Noein then corrected himself, and addressed the man in front of him as Excellency Lord Kivaleft. Showing a look of disgust, Lord Kivaleft called Noein a bastard, stating that after everyone knew Noein shared the same blood as his, he had no choice but to keep feeding him for 15 years straight. Lord Kivaleft then made it clear to Noein that the experience he had endured for the past 15 years was the most troublesome and disgusting experience of his life, and he guessed that Noein could just imagine what he had gone through by himself. Lord Kivaleft's suffering had now come to an end as he told Noein that it would be the last day he would ever see his son's face. Despite how he had treated Noein, Lord Kivaleft thought that it would be too cruel if he simply let Noein go, someone who shared his blood. Before Noein's departure, he gave him one final gift. A long time ago, their Earl family received a small enclave as a gift from the royal family. The place was associated with the Alquist knighthood. Lord Kivaleft also decided to give Noein some money to help him run the place and believed that it should be enough to satisfy him. Listening to his father, Noein thought about how totally patronizing it was. The territory and the title accompanying it sounded good, but Noein knew that it was only for namesake. Noein believed that it was merely a curse that would bind him to the secluded forests on the frontier of the kingdom. From what Noein could grasp, his father simply did not want that land sitting there abandoned. However, if Noein refused to take on some development project, which might or might not be profitable despite the hassle, he knew that his father was merely waiting for the right timing to dispose of both him and the land. From what Noein had experienced throughout his entire life, he believed that this was what his father was scheming. For Noein, Lord Kivaleft was an oppressor who prioritized his own self-interests above anything else. Now that his father wanted him to risk his own life just to survive, Noein wondered how much his foolish father planned on trampling his life. With eyes showing nothing but emptiness, Noein thought about how much he hated his scum of a father. Noein had a territory in the southern part of the kingdom of Lodberg. He was also born as the eldest son of Earl Maximilian Kivaleft. The problem lay with Noein's mother, as she was merely a commoner servant who had worked in the Earl's mansion. Noein's mother was extremely good-looking for a commoner, and the Earl did not think much when he approached her, believing that she was an easy girl. After Noein's mother became pregnant, she spread rumors throughout the mansion about the Earl's child. Hence, Noein was born as an illegitimate child who had to be recognized due to his Earl blood. Because of the scandal, Noein's father was called an idiot for having an illegitimate child before taking a legal wife. Noein's mother then settled into the position of a concubine, leading a luxurious life. On the other hand, Noein, who had only served the purpose of giving his mother the position of a concubine, received no love from anyone around him. After Noein turned 9, his mother died due to an illness. After that incident, Noein was forced to live inside a hut. Noein was told by a maid that the detached house would be his residence moving forward. Lord Kivaleft also forbade Noein from going anywhere. Maximilian Kivaleft did not have the courage to kill his illegitimate child with his own hands, and his legal wife from another noble family would not allow the dirty illegitimate child to come near the household. This resulted in Noein being transferred to a small home. "I understood," said Noein, being transferred to a small home. Noein was confined in a detached house built in the corner of the estate and spent 6 years of his life like a trapped bird in a cage until he reached adulthood. After being confined in a detached home following his mother's death, Noein only knew about society based on the books that were provided to him. Noein grew up being told that his very existence was something to be ashamed of. This made Noein long for freedom while he was locked in a confined space. With tears in his eyes, Noein knew only a life that was under house arrest. Lord Kivaleft robbed Noein of 15 years of his childhood and locked him away in a remote place. When Noein finally thought that he could be free as an adult, he never expected that his father would give him a title and land to bind him to another remote area, as if he were owed a favor. The grudge Noein held against his father reached its limit, and he pledged to himself that he would definitely take revenge on him. Noein accepted the land and title, but first asked one last favor from his father. Noein asked if he could get Lord Kivaleft's permission to buy one of the Earl's slaves to accompany him. The matter was immediately settled, as Noein was soon accompanied by a girl with rabbit ears who asked him if he wanted to take a quick break since he looked tired. Huffing, Noein could only stare back at the woman. The servant suggested that they have some tea for now, which Noein also agreed with. Noein apologized for getting tired so quickly just after moving a little. The servant responded, telling Noein that there was no need for him to apologize. "I just wanted to walk by myself no matter what," said Noein. The Bezel Forest was now Noein's territory, and today was the first day of reclamation of the land. Noein stated that the place was nothing but a forest and that he did not have any people who cared about him, nor did he have any vassals to serve him, and that even the house where he was going to spend his days had not been built yet. Noein then asked Matilda if she still did not find it fun yet. In the deep parts of the untouched forest, Noein's hands and legs had become extremely weak due to years of confinement. Noein thought that it was the worst combination anyone could have, which led him to believe that his father must have hoped that he would die in the forest. Noein continued onward with Matilda and stated that he would not even know what would have happened to him if he were not a puppet magician. In the kingdom of Lodberg, anyone who reached the age of 10, whether a royal member or a commoner, could receive the ceremony of blessing at the Holy Church. Even among many people, very few of them received the gift of magic, making it a rare blessing to possess. Even among those people, most only had limited talents, such as making fire, water, or clay form from the soil for daily use. Very rarely, however, there appeared individuals who possessed strong magic. Those people were called wizards, as they had an extremely strong affinity toward magic, and even among the several dozen people who possessed magical talent, they were exceedingly rare. Among these rare wizards, Noein was a puppet wizard gifted with powerful puppet magic. Puppet magic is a type of magic in which one engraves a magic circuit onto a puppet, similar to a golem, which allows a person to freely manipulate the puppet. These puppets had to be hard and heavy, with their inner circuits arranged in a way that allowed for the easy passage of magic flow. The golems were also very strong. However, golems had a fatal flaw, which was that they were very difficult to handle. Fundamentally, golems are slow-moving creatures that have difficulty in battle and even struggle to move properly. If one underwent extensive training, they could make a golem move just like a normal human, but that would take a great deal of time and resources which not everyone could afford. Therefore, the talent of puppet magic is better than receiving nothing at all, but compared to other talents, puppet magic is not very attractive. That was what the world had accepted as a fact. For 5 years, Noein practiced magic almost every day and finally yielded results. Noein was glad that he had obtained the talent of a puppet wizard, as it was far more useful than merely making fire or water with his hands. Like you said, Master Noein has an extremely good talent, said Matilda. The golems were the ones that pulled the cart all the way to Bezel, and they were also the ones that led them through the entire forest. Noein also mentioned how he saved every penny he received and bought a golem, and he was glad to see that it was not a bad purchase. The fact that Noein could handle such a large golem showed Matilda that the master she was serving was an extremely gifted individual. After all, I practiced it as many times as I could while I was under house arrest, said Noein. After hours of work, Noein's home was finally completed. A small tent would be Noein's home for the time being. Noein found it quite amusing that he was living in a tent even though he was the lord of the place. Noein was caught off guard when Matilda entered first before him. Matilda then reminded Noein that he was an extremely talented person, and that in a few years the palace would become a town which would later turn into a big city. Eventually, Noein could comfortably live in a mansion of his own and live a good life. Living inside the tent, Matilda mentioned that where they were currently staying was only the beginning stage. Hearing that, Noein agreed and thanked Matilda for reminding him. It had been 2.5 months since Noein was kicked out of the mansion. He then came to the Alquist territory in mid-March, and it was still empty and chilly everywhere. Since this was Noein's new story, he decided to start it from the place he was now ruling. Noein then told Matilda to take a good look at how he would take his revenge. Konitz Viscounty, the capital of Letvik, on the east side of the Alquist territory. Inside a tavern, a man asked if they had heard the story about the noble who was developing the west side of the Bezel forest. The man was unsure what the plan was for developing a place with nothing but trees. The man even questioned the purpose of having a feudal lord in a place with no citizens, and that is very remote. Hearing the other table's story, a long-haired man asked his group if they also heard what he had just heard. Pointing out the fact that a noble is residing in a remote area with no one backing him up, the man stated that even if the noble died in the forest, no one would take action. The long-haired man believed that the noble is the best person they could take revenge on. Meanwhile, deep in the Bezel forest, Noein stated that it has been a month since they started developing the place. Noein then asked Matilda's opinion on what they should do next. Matilda apologized, as she also had no idea about such matters. Noein responded, telling Matilda not to mind him, as he was just mumbling. Thanks to the golems, the number of plains in the area for cultivation have increased. The crops that Noein and Matilda planted in the farmlands have started sprouting, and the clearing work of the forest is also going smoothly. Despite what Noein has done for the whole month, he knows that Bezel Forest is still a place that cannot be called a territory. In order for a place to be called a territory, one must have citizens. Even if Noein wanted to recruit people, he had no way to spread the word, and he also does not have any money to spare. Noein's father, Lord Maximilian Kivaleft, only gave Noein 300,000 rebros. After purchasing Matilda, Noein was left with 250,000 rebros. Noein calculated the things that he would be needing, such as farming tools, magic tools, and tools necessary for the reclamation of land. Noein also bought a top-grade tent because the development work would consume a lot of his energy. After paying for all the materials, Noein was left with 200,000 rebros. Seeing Noein's worried expression, Matilda thought of making him some tea to relieve some of his stress. Within the bushes, Matilda noticed a threat and immediately called out to her master, covering him with her own body. Both were shocked when an arrow suddenly landed near Noein's feet. "From him," Noein muttered. Seeing that the threat was very real, Matilda decided to carry Noein on her shoulder and ran away. Matilda explained the situation to Noein, telling him that they were being ambushed and were being attacked from the right side of the forest. When the two finally got out of the forest, Noein, who was facing the forest, saw the enemy. Raising his arm, Noein instantly used his ability, summoning golems from the ground. As Matilda's warning fully sank into Noein's head, he asked who it was and why they were targeting them. Matilda did not respond to Noein's questions, but instead warned him again that two of their pursuers were currently on the right, one on the left, and also one from the front. Matilda informed Noein that she would be taking care of the enemy coming from the front. By controlling his golem, Noein was able to momentarily push their enemy back. With the pursuers regrouping, they were quite surprised by Noein's golems. What surprised them more was how fast the golems moved. Seeing how their enemies were dodging his golem attacks so easily, Noein began to wonder again why such people were attacking him in the first place. Noein thought that if his enemies were just common bandits or brainless idiots, his golems would have already done plenty of damage to them. With the enemies being too skilled, Noein thought that he would be in big trouble if things continued as they were. Sensing someone from behind, Noein turned and was knocked out. Meanwhile, Matilda was also facing the enemy in front of her. After landing a kick, the man was caught off guard and told Matilda that she was unexpectedly quick, as they never expected that there would be someone who could fight. Staring back at the man, Matilda thought that she needed to defeat him quickly and return to Noein. Matilda was stopped when she heard someone ordering them to stop. Turning to her side, Matilda was shocked to see Noein captured, with a blade pointed at his neck. The long-haired man asked Matilda if she served the noble and told her to stop fighting if the noble was truly important to her. With Noein now captured, Matilda was left with no other choice but to stop. Another enemy appeared, telling their leader that they had encountered more trouble than they had thought. "Really?" said the man. The long-haired man noticed how quickly the golems moved, and what surprised him more was how well the golems fought. The man then warned Noein not to try to move his golems. Noein thought about their current situation, facing 5 enemies, which meant that they would be at a huge disadvantage if they chose to fight now. If Noein also tried to move the golems and have them attack the enemy, the leader would cut his neck with a knife. "Good," said the man after seeing Noein not doing anything. The man then called both Pence and Radley, ordering them to tie Matilda up. Seeing Matilda getting tied up, Noein thought that he had to find a way to survive now. Looking at how the man was giving out the orders, Noein assumed that the long-haired man was the leader of the group. Noein thought that he needed to do something about the leader, but wondered if he could even negotiate with him. Facing the leader, Noein asked what their motive was and if it was because of money. The leader responded, confirming to Noein that they indeed needed money, but clarified that their number one motive was Noein himself. The man then asked Noein if he was an aristocrat. Noein's eyes widened, unable to utter a single word due to being so nervous. The leader mentioned that his only motive was to kill Noein. Only the darkest and murkiest feelings existed. There was a voice that seemed to be shouting, a voice that was full of resentment. The leader truly wanted to kill Noein for the very reason that nobles had killed his mercenary family. After the tragic incident, the man fell into the life of a lowly bandit. The bandit leader used to lead a fairly large number of people when he was a mercenary, but at the beginning of the year they were hired by some noble who lived in the southeast part of the country. Alongside the territorial guards, they had to fight the Paris kingdom in the east due to rising conflict. However, after arriving at their destination, all of them were abandoned. From the very start, their employers were planning on using them as bait to reduce damage to the territory's army, which led many of their members to die. The rest decided to abandon their positions and ran away from the war. Most of the mercenaries got separated, and thus only a small number remained. As they continued to run away, they eventually ran out of money and had to become thieves. The bandit leader blamed their tragic fate on the nobles. For that reason, the man decided that he would kill the nobility. The man didn't know nor care who Noein was, but he vowed that he would start killing nobles, deciding that now was the time to draw the line. Hearing the man's story, Noein realized that there was no room for negotiation. Noein didn't want to die, as he believed that he still had many things left to do in the world. However, the bandit leader wouldn't be listening to anything that he said. Noein thought that he too had hateful feelings toward a person he wanted to take revenge on. The bandit leader was not sure if Noein understood his reasoning, but before the man could continue speaking, Noein stopped him and told him that he needed to answer his question. Noein asked if, by any chance, the southern aristocrat who hired the mercenaries and tried to use them as pawns was Earl Maximilian Kiveleft. Shocked, the bandits asked Noein how he knew that name. Before the bandits could say anything further, they were stopped when Noein suddenly burst out laughing. Confused, the bandits asked Noein why he was laughing and what was so funny. "Why, you ask?" "Because I'm extremely happy to meet you guys," said Noein. Noein was very much pleased to learn that there were others who hated his father to the point of badmouthing him. "Awesome. That's such a coincidence," said Noein. When Noein was under house arrest, he relied on Matilda to gather all sorts of information about what was happening outside. At that time, when Lord Kiveleft sent troops to fight in the conflict, it seemed that the Lord hired many mercenaries who were cheaper than the regular army. Even those people were swayed by Lord Kiveleft and were eventually abandoned. Noein stated that his father was just a vicious man who was a miser and imposed tyranny for his own self-interest. Calling out the name Maximilian Kiveleft, Noein revealed to the bandits that the person who destroyed their lives was his father, whom he had no respect for. Hearing this surprised the bandit leader. Noein never thought that he would meet the former mercenaries who were once employed by his father. After introducing himself as the son of Lord Kivaleft, Noein explained that he too had a situation he wanted to settle with his father. Noein then asked the mercenaries if they could also hear his story. After listening to Noein's story, the leader understood Noein's situation and thought that the world was very small for them to meet the son of the person who destroyed their lives. Noein then suggested to the bandits that they stop their plan of killing any nobles and instead find and pursue another form of revenge. Another revenge, said the bandit leader. They then asked Noein if he was referring to killing Earl Kivaleft instead of killing him. Puzzled, Noein responded that it was the other way around. Noein explained how he needed his father to live a healthy life in order for him to get his revenge. Not expecting Noein's suggestion, the bandit leader asked Noein what he meant by what he had said earlier. Noein then offered the bandits the chance to become his citizens. Confused, the bandit leader asked Noein if he was joking. Showing a bright smile, Noein responded that he was only telling them what he truly wished for from his heart. Growing up deprived of his freedom because of his father, Noein wanted to reclaim whatever he had lost by obtaining everything that his father still did not possess. Noein vowed to develop the territory according to his ideals and beliefs. Noein also aimed to live his life as a lord who was loved by his people. If Noein were to achieve that, he was certain that his father would soon learn of his success. Just imagining the face his father would make upon learning of his success excited Noein very much. If Earl Kivaleft learned that his illegitimate child, whom he wanted to die, was living a healthy and happy life as a lord, Noein wondered what his father's face would look like. In fear of the world digging up Lord Kivaleft's forgotten past scandal with a maid, Noein was certain that his father would always live a life full of worries, which would leave a bad taste in his mouth. In simpler terms, Noein told the bandit leader that if they simply lived a happy and successful life on his land, it would be more than enough to trouble his father for the rest of his life. Extending his hand, Noein once again offered the bandits the chance to become his citizens and abandon the idea of taking some boring revenge, and instead take a revenge that would give them lots of fun. Noein has a very distorted personality, and one of the main reasons for this is his origin. After his birth, Noein was shown no love and never spoke to his mother. He was only allowed to converse with the other maids in the household. However, the maids of the household always told him that he was never meant to be born. Since Noein spent his childhood in such an environment, it never allowed him to mature into a decent human being. Lord Kivaleft shared with the world how ashamed he was that his eldest son did not know how to read and write despite being an illegitimate child. Only for a single year was Noein allowed to learn how to read and write from a private tutor. From there, Noein realized what kind of restrictions he had been placed under this entire time. Even though Noein had not done anything wrong, he asked himself why every person looked at him like trash. This treatment painted a terrible image in Noein's mind, and he came to believe that the world was such a horrible place. The turning point in Noein's life occurred after he was locked up, during which he had an unexpected encounter. A beastman slave named Matilda was assigned to Noein as his personal caretaker. Noein's world began to revolve around talking to Matilda all the time. For the first time, Noein learned how it felt to be loved by someone. Before long, Noein found love, which until then had only been knowledge found in books. During his first experience of such happiness, Noein never knew that such a feeling could exist in the world. Noein felt good to finally feel loved by someone. This feeling made Noein want to be loved by even more people. Noein not only wanted love, but he also wanted to be respected and admired by others. Finally experiencing something that he had been deprived of, Noein did not want to lose the happiness of being loved ever again. He wanted an inexhaustible amount of happiness to make up for the unhappiness he had endured until now. Unlike his tyrannical father, who ruled over people through force, Noein wanted to live and rule as an ideal noble who would be respected. He wanted to be kind to the people, treat his subjects well, and become a lord who would be loved by his vassals. No matter what happened, Noein vowed not to let his happiness be taken away from him. Returning to his conversation with the bandits, Noein suggested that they become citizens of his land and asked if they could introduce themselves to him. The former leader of the mercenary group Crimson Sword introduced himself as Yuri and stated that he was 35 years old. The next person to introduce himself was Pence, who claimed to be the closest to their boss. After Pence came Radley, who was known as the veteran of the group and was able to battle quite well. The lady then introduced herself, with Mai going first, and shared that she was Yuri's woman. Next was Bart, who stated that thanks to his God-given face he was left in charge of negotiating and gathering information. After repeating all of the bandits' names and asking if he had gotten them correct, Noein then proceeded to introduce both himself and Matilda, showing how pleased they were to meet the mercenaries. The bandits were very puzzled as to how Noein was pleased to meet them when they were trying to take his life. They then asked Noein again why he wanted them to become citizens of his land. Noein asked the bandits to stop their plans of taking revenge on nobles and instead join him as his citizens. Not only would the bandits benefit, but both sides would be in a relationship of mutual understanding. If both parties connected with love and respect, Noein was certain that they could achieve something more than what Earl Maximilian Kivaleft had stolen from them, which was a new home and a brand new life. Noein then asked the bandits if they were not interested in taking away his father's happiness. Noein promised that he would be a good lord and that he would love all the citizens of his land. As the lord of the land, Noein also promised to fulfill the wishes of his people. Listening to Noein, Yuri acted cautiously with his next move, since he could not see any lies in Noein's words. When someone is crazy and has gone insane, if such a person asks for help from someone, one can easily abandon them. However, Yuri guessed that finding happiness after all that had happened to them was not such a bad thing. The bandits wondered if it was really okay. After everything that had happened, even if they wanted to live a happy life, Yuri asked himself if they could really trust Noein and start over with a new life. Yuri then mentioned to Noein that his father, Lord Maximilian Kivaleft, had hired an army to chase them down, and he asked Noein if it was really safe for him to be hanging around with them. Noein reassured his newfound allies that the army his father had hired would not be coming to his territory. Noein explained that his father's useless army would not visit a remote place just to look for a couple of bandits, as he knew that his father would not spend money on the search expenses and would probably give up after a while. Seeing that there was no ill reaction to what he said, Noein took the matter as settled. Noein went up to Yuri, telling him that if he took his revenge with him, he could get a chance to live a happy life while also taking revenge. Annoyed, Pence voiced out his frustration and asked his boss if they could end things now. Pence reminded Yuri of what he had wanted for so long, which was to kill nobles as his revenge, regardless of who they were. Pence also pointed out that as their comrades kept dying one by one, Yuri fell into despair day by day. There were also times when Pence wished that they would stop with their revenge. However, after listening to Noein's story, it was clear to Pence that their plans would not have any effect on him, since Noein had already been abandoned. Pence was quite certain that killing Noein would not only give them no benefit, but might also lead to their doom in the future. Despite Noein being a noble, Pence pointed out that both Noein's and Yuri's goals were very similar. "You guys, are you sure?" Yuri said. The bandits had already decided to follow Yuri from the start, thus his decision would always be the final one for them. Hearing this, Yuri smiled and stated that all of them had lost many things so far, to the point that they had ended up becoming bandits. Since Noein personally offered the bandits another chance to rise back up again, Yuri and the rest of the bandits bent a knee and promised that they would be Noein's sword to protect him and a shield that would defend him from all enemies. From that moment onward, Yuri and the rest of his group swore their loyalty to Noein. This brought so much happiness to Noein, and he thanked Yuri while also swearing to them that he would protect his loyal retainers moving forward. With Noein successfully adding the former mercenary group as part of his domain, he notices Matilda's expression and asks her why she is mad. Matilda responds that she could never be angry with him. However, Noein can very much tell that Matilda is pissed at Yuri and the others. Noein tries to make Matilda understand that the bandits are also victims of his bastard father. "Yes, Lord Noein," says Matilda. With the bandits' background story in mind, Noein decides to take them as his people instead of abandoning them. Matilda responds with the exact same words, which leaves Noein even more puzzled. In the end, Matilda finally voices her concern, pointing out how Yuri and the others attacked Noein, mentioning Yuri in particular, who tried to kill Noein for an utterly senseless reason. For those acts alone, Matilda could never forgive them. Yuri keeps silent, as what Matilda states are all facts. Yuri tells Noein that he has every right to be angry, and if Noein agrees to have his new citizens punished, Yuri is willing to offer a finger as a form of punishment. Confused, Noein asks what Yuri is talking about. With her eyes filled with hate, Matilda agrees with what is being offered, and requests to have at least the pinky finger of Yuri's left hand. "No way," says Noein. With the condition being accepted, Yuri pulls out a knife and is about to cut his pinky finger. Shocked, Noein makes Yuri stop what he is doing and makes it clear that he will not have any bloodshed spilled right away, especially coming from his newly accepted citizen. Both Matilda and Yuri have different responses to Noein's decision, which leaves the two with a tense feeling toward each other. To resolve the matter, Noein agrees to overlook the attempt on his life, but then brings up how Yuri called Matilda a breeding rabbit, in which Noein mentions that Matilda is more important to him than anyone. As punishment, Yuri will allow Matilda to kick him. When Noein asks if that would work, Yuri agrees. Matilda immediately takes out her frustrations and knocks Yuri unconscious with just her kicks. With the punishment settled, Noein then states that moving forward they must work together and build up their territory. Noein approaches Yuri and tells him that they will be buying tents and supplies for all of them tomorrow, since it is already evening. Noein hopes that Yuri and the others will bear sleeping outdoors for the night. Surprised, Yuri tells Noein that they honestly would not mind roughing it outside for a while. However, Noein tells Yuri to stop being ridiculous, as he has no plans of leaving his precious people to sleep outdoors. Following the manual on how to run a domain that he found in his family's study, Noein learns that if he wants to raise productivity, he will have to start by securing decent food, clothing, and shelter for all of his people. If people are in filthy clothes, eating poorly, and cannot be kept out of the wind and rain, then they will not be able to do anything worthwhile. Noein believes that if he gives his people a proper life first and then has them work, everything else would improve and would eventually turn into profit for the Lord. With that in mind, Noein is making an upfront investment in all of them, and for that reason alone he will be counting on his new citizens from then on. Kent is Viscounty capital of Ratoivik. Noein arrives and wonders how they should split up their roles. Noein decides to have Pence and Radley watch over the cart. Matilda, Bart and Noein will head out to the Krebel Trading Company. Since Yuri is known as a bandit, Noein decides to have him, Mai and Matilda watch their place. Bart calls Noein's attention and asks him if he would let him handle the shopping. Pence then mentions that Bart's negotiation skills are very impressive, which may help them strike a good deal. Listening to Pence, Noein can also tell that Bart has a lot of confidence in him. Noein decides and orders Bart to pick up the tents and their daily necessities. Consider it done, says Bart. Arriving at the Krebel Trading Company, they are immediately welcomed and greeted by Eliza. Good afternoon, Eliza, says Noein Abud. Noein then shares that as of yesterday he finally took in some new people and has come to the place to buy food for them. Oh my, that's wonderful news, says Eliza. Noein then requests salt, barley, pickled vegetables and also some fresh vegetables that will keep for a while. Eliza agrees to put together all of Noein's requests for him and suggests that they have a seat while they wait. While waiting, Noein hears Eliza ordering Marco to help stock the shelves and Anna to serve Noein some tea. The Krebel Trading Company is a grocery store located near Ratoivik's West Gate, and it mostly caters to commoners. Noein has already visited the store several times, which has allowed him to be on familiar terms with the owner, Eliza. Anna approaches Noein, offering him some tea. Noein asks the girl if she is Anna and then thanks her for the tea. Seeing how Anna is helping out in the store, Noein assumes that she can read, write, and do figures. Anna responds, telling Noein that she can, but just enough to handle checking inventory and the ledgers. Hearing Anna's response impresses Noein very much, since bookkeeping requires a fairly high level of knowledge in arithmetic. Anna asks Noein, confirming if he is the one developing the Bezel Great Forest to the west. Noein responds and tells Anna that she is correct. One thought leads to another, and Noein ends up becoming the lord of that land. Noein also shares that he came all the way up from the southern part of the kingdom. Anna is very impressed to hear Noein's stories, as she then reveals that she has never once left Retovik since she was born. Noein asks Anna if she is interested in the world outside the city. Anna responds that she is, and shares that her late father used to be a traveling merchant. Before Anna can continue what she is about to say, Bart appears and interrupts the conversation after he finally finds Noein. Bart approaches Noein and tells him that he has already picked up everything that he was asked for. Noein is surprised as he did not expect that Bart would finish his task so quickly. Noein takes the opportunity to introduce Bart to Eliza, one of the people who has become his subjects. Bart then shows off his good looks and shares his tragic life story as a refugee, and how he was finally saved when Noein took him in and welcomed him to the Arkvist lands. Seeing how modest Bart acts, Eliza shares how Noein is also very kind to commoners like them and how Bart is very lucky to have had a wonderful lord take him in. Bart agrees and then vows to serve Noein with everything he has and repay his great debt of gratitude. Eliza tells Bart to wait before turning away. Eliza then returns and hands Bart a gift to celebrate him being taken in by Noein and also for everything the new subjects have been through. With just his words, Bart is able to obtain some luxurious raisins. Bart thanks Eliza for her kindness. Eliza responds, telling Bart to think nothing of it and to just do his best out there. Observing how Bart works, Noein thinks that with a handsome face and the skill to deal with people, one surely holds a serious power. After making their purchase, Noein and the others leave while Eliza and her staff bid them farewell. On their way back, Pence asks Noein who Bart is. Noein is very impressed with Bart and mentions that his performance was flawless. After having a short conversation, Bart manages to earn so much trust, which leads Noein to believe that they may have found the right person for external affairs. I appreciate you saying that, says Bart, in which he then asks Noein if he is really sure about buying towels and soap for everyone, as normally purchasing such items is only intended for the rich. Noein responds and tells Bart that it is very okay. Since Bart and the others are going to be living in tents in the middle of the forest, they will not be able to keep going if they do not at least keep their bodies and clothes clean. Noein wants to be a lord who is worthy of receiving all of his servants' hard work. In return, Noein will also make sure that his people are properly taken care of. Noein truly believes that by letting his people live well, it will make the territory thrive. The bandits then ask Noein if that is what he meant by the upfront investment he mentioned before. Exactly, you're starting to get it now, says Noein. On their way back from Letvik, a couple of monsters appear right on the path that Noein and his group are taking. Noein asks Pence what is wrong. Pence reports to Noein that kobolds have appeared. Hearing this, Noein decides to take action himself and finish it quickly. However, Pence stops him and offers to take care of it for him. All Pence asks is for Noein to stand back and keep an eye on their things. Pence is afraid that if their boss ever finds out that they made Noein work by protecting them, he is certain that they would be torn into pieces. Pence asks Noein to let them handle the situation and promises that it will be finished in no time. Before approaching the kobolds, Pence again asks Noein to just sit back and watch. After Pence sheathes his sword and kills the kobolds, Noein is impressed by how Pence and the others keep their word by dealing with the kobolds in one strike, which he finds very cool. Pence tells Noein that what they did was just the easy stuff. Radley believes that they could have finished much faster if Bart had not slowed them down. However, Bart thinks differently and states that he definitely did not slow them down, but rather points out how Radley is just too strong. Noein then tells Matilda how lucky he is to have his first subjects be capable warriors. Matilda is certain that even God is watching over Noein's revenge. Pence asks Noein what they will be doing with the corpses, and suggests that they butcher them for meat, though it would take some time. Noein orders the three to just take the kobold's magic stones and fangs and leave the rest for the forest animals. Bart, Radley, and Pence follow Noein's orders. When the group finally returns, the first thing Noein notices is Yuri's bald head, at which point he asks if Yuri shaved his head. Yuri explains that he stood out too much with his previous red hair. Since there are posters going around, Yuri thinks that it is better to change how he looks. Once Yuri grows out a beard as well, he is certain that no one will realize that he is the wanted mercenary from the southeast. Noein then asks Mai if she is okay with what Yuri did, stating that her boyfriend's appearance has changed quite a bit. Mai does not mind at all, as Yuri still looks good to her no matter what. Hearing what Mai says, no one can tell how much she truly loves Yuri. Yuri, on the other hand, is starting to feel nauseous from embarrassment. Changing the topic, Yuri asks Noein if the place they are at is supposed to be their settlement. Yuri then points out how there is a whole lot of nothing, despite the place being called a settlement. Noein explains that they have only been in the forest for a month, and that it has just been him, Matilda, and the golems, which is why the place is mostly undeveloped. Despite how the place looks, Noein reassures them that it is pretty comfortable. Noein then mentions how the tents are high quality and that they also got basic magic tools for daily life. Noein points out as well the river nearby and a handy golem to help them out. Yuri tells Noein how he was just thinking that it could not have been easy to clear that much, and that he is very much impressed by Noein for not giving up. Noein responds, telling Yuri that if he succeeds in building up his territory, then he will be able to get revenge on his bastard father and find happiness. Noein mentions that his plan has changed since he now has capable people like Yuri and the others as his subjects. Noein is certain that his territory will become a village, then a town, and maybe even a city, at which point he asks Yuri if he does not see the possibilities ahead. Noein then encourages everyone, telling them that they must all work together. Yeah, everyone responds. A week later, Yuri and the others are already on their last legs, fully exhausted. Despite activating a debuff, Yuri can still feel the pain in his back. Pence voices out, stating that what they are doing is a whole different kind of rough compared to combat. Yuri states how he is finally starting to remember how to use farm tools again. Radley then mentions to Pence and Yuri how they have it easy, as he reveals that guys like him never had the chance to touch a field in their lives. Mai mentions how every single thing is new and that she is nowhere near used to it. Noni appears, praising Yuri and the others for doing a great job, and also notices how worn out they look. Noni apologizes for making his talented warriors do nothing but farm work. Yuri tells Noein that it cannot be helped since they are the only subjects he has. Yuri then points out that clearing the forest, laying the groundwork for the fields, tending the plots that were already present, and cooking meals for everyone are already being taken care of by their lord and his attendants. Seeing such hard work being done, Yuri believes that they have no reason to complain at all. Intrigued, Mai asks Noein what he is planting in the field. Noein is glad that Mai asks and tells her that it is potatoes that he is planting. Seeing how Mai has never seen such a plant before, Noein explains that it is a crop from a southern continent across the sea. In their kingdom, the potato is only used as an ornament. Noein got to read about it in an old book that was just gathering dust at the Count's estate. From what Noein learned, potatoes are easy to grow and spread quickly. On top of that, they are packed with nutrients. Down south, the potatoes are called crops that save nations. Noein thought about how lucky he was to get a whole barrel of seed potatoes down at the port. With that, Noein is certain that they will not have to worry about food and that it would also help with their growth. Yuri still never thought that after years of being a mercenary, he would end up doing farm work again. From Noein's view, Yuri and the others are more like independent farmers, since they are actually working on their own plot of land. With everyone becoming silent, Noein asks them what is wrong. Yuri asks if they are not just doing farm work as stand-in tenant farmers on Noein's land. Shocked, Noein responds no, and tells Yuri that the plot is theirs. Noein then reminds Yuri of what he said when they started, pointing out the location and stating how it would be their plots. Eh? We thought you were just dividing work for everyone, says Yuri. Noein also mentions that he has no plans on leaving them as just independent farmers, as he is also planning to build a big happy life for himself as their lord. To do that, Noein needs to make the entire domain richer. To achieve that, Noein is going to need a lot of capable people who will serve him as his retainers. Noein then wishes for everyone to become his retainer. Staring at each other, Yuri asks themselves if they heard Noein correctly about them becoming his retainers. To start off, Noein appoints Yuri as his chief retainer, and his job would be leading the whole mercenary band. Noein is certain that Yuri will be fine as he knows what Yuri is capable of. Noein wants Yuri to be there to give him advice and to stop him when he is doing something wrong. Next would be Pence, who is now the deputy chief retainer. Once the population grows, Noein and Yuri will get busy, at which point Noein will need Pence to handle things. The skill and experience Pence built up as second in command of the mercenary band would be a real asset for him, or so Noein believes. Radley is assigned to be the stalwart warrior who protects the territory. Bart will serve as the retainer handling affairs outside the domain. Lastly, Mai, as Noein's longer-serving female retainer, is someone Noein wants to make full use of, along with her position and abilities. Just watching how everyone worked and carried themselves for the past week leaves no doubt in Noein's mind that his people are smart and loyal to him. Noein reassures them that they will soon receive even bigger responsibilities and asks that they be ready for it. Before leaving, Noein tells the group that he will be counting on them to stick with him through a lot of revenge. Yuri and the others are left stunned after listening to Noein. After soaking in what Noein has told them, the group suggests that they get back to work. The mercenaries never expected that they would make such a leap. From rootless mercenaries to landowners. Looking at Noein from behind, Pence promises him that they will be diligent, capable, and loyal subjects to him. A few weeks later, Noein sees that they have saved up a decent amount of materials. Noein then suggests to everyone that they now earn the Alquist domain's very first income. 4 months have passed since Noein was cast out of the family estate and ordered to develop the frontier in January. With Noein's skill, he turned the forest into workable land. With his deep compassion, Noein even made a former mercenary band of thieves into retainers. Day after day, Noein has been achieving remarkable results as Lord of the Alquist domain. Noein calls for Matilda, telling her that it is time to head out. For today's schedule, Noein and Matilda are on their way to their first deal with a major trading company. At the Konitz Viscounty, Noein brought with them various pelts, magic stones from monster bodies, as well as fangs and claws. Ever since they started developing the land, Noein and the others have taken down quite a few beasts and monsters. If they can sell all of the materials they've collected, it would cover food and living expenses for a good while. The trading house where Noein's group is headed is one of the finest in the Konitz lands, the Miles Trading Company. Noein heard about them from Eliza, after which he decided that he would sell Alquist goods through them. Noein mentions how Miles has branches in all the major cities in the kingdom's northwest, and that they also have distribution routes reaching the northeast, the southwest, and even the central region where the capital is located. The Miles Trading Company is also one of the official suppliers to House Konitz, which rules the area. Having a family with an excellent reputation to be associated with, Noein believes that they are the ideal trading partner. Noein was asked if his decision is really okay, with it being pointed out that it will immediately put them on House Konitz's radar. Noein clarifies that they are not proposing anything shady and reassures them that it will be fine. Noein also mentions that Viscount Konitz is well aware that they are developing the Great Bezel Forest. Aside from the way the city gate guards acted, Noein believes that that is all. Noein also mentions that since the person they are being associated with is a high-ranking noble, he is certain that Viscount Konitz isn't going to bother looking twice at a nobody like him. In the Lodberg Kingdom, dukes through barons are considered high nobility. Baronets and knights are classified as lower nobility. In most cases, there is a huge gap in power between the high and low nobility. House Konitz is among the most powerful high nobles in the kingdom's northwest. Noein, by contrast, sits at the very bottom of the lower nobility. A noble in name, but the difference between them is similar to heaven and earth. Yuri tries to cheer Noein up, telling him that a day will come when Noein will be standing shoulder to shoulder with the high-ranking nobles. Of course, says Noein, as that is what he also needs for his revenge. Arriving at the Miles Trading Company, Noein reminds his men that they will be focusing on the negotiation. Noein then informs both Mai and Matilda that he will be counting on the two of them to do the shopping. Leave it to me, says Mai. Matilda looks very distant and responds that she will follow whatever her lord wishes. Seeing the facial expression Matilda is wearing, Noein calls her attention and tells her that he does not like getting split up from her, and that he would certainly miss having her by his side. However, his decision to bring Bart and Yuri is necessary for the meeting to go well. Noein tries to explain how it would be far too much to leave all the shopping to Mai alone, after which he asks Matilda to help Mai out. Matilda agrees and apologizes for being selfish. She then reassures Noein that she will do her job properly. Noein thanks Matilda for understanding. After seeing Matilda off, Noein turns away, feeling very much excited to do some business. Noein is greeted by a man and is asked what they can do for him. Noein introduces himself as a knight whose lands lie west of the Konitz domain. Noein then informs the man of the purpose of their visit, in which he asks to sell the monster pelts and magic stones that they've collected. Upon hearing Noein's name, the man asks that they wait for a moment. Seeing the man go upstairs, Yuri informs Noein that it looked like the man went to fetch someone higher up. Noein agrees with Yuri after exchanging a few words with the man. Bottom of the barrel or not, Noein is still a titled noble. With the development going smoothly, Noein has confidently brought the results of their hard labor to the meeting. If Noein were to be seen in such a manner, he is certain that he would get to meet with one of the company's executives. Noein thinks that this is the perfect scenario for them to show up. The man returns, thanking Noein for patiently waiting. The man then informs Noein that the company president will handle their negotiations personally. In a study, the president thanks Noein for visiting his place and introduces himself as the president of the Miles Trading Company, Benedict Miles. Noein feels honored that such a prominent person would receive someone like him who is inexperienced. Benedict mentions that even a humble person such as himself has heard of Noein's achievements. Benedict wishes to remove the formality between the two and asks Noein to call him by his first name. From what Benedict was informed, Noein had brought pelts and magic stones to sell. Noein explains that his land lies within the Great Forest, so being a frontier territory they are never short on game and monsters to hunt. Listening to Noein, Benedict imagines that Noein's domain is a fine land with enormous potential for development. Noein can tell how obvious the flattery is as it slips into small talk, but somehow it does not feel slimy, and he guesses that it is simply a merchant's skill. Noein wishes to start by going over what they have brought. The first item is the pelt and magic stone from one plump deer. Benedict is very impressed and shares that they can never keep that type of material in stock, which means that Noein's materials help them greatly. Noein notices the improvement in Benedict's reaction, which eases his worries as he finds comfort in knowing that Benedict is not completely unreadable. Next on Noein's list are the pelts, stones, and claws from 5 gluttony rabbits. Noein also includes 3 kobold pelts and 6 sets of kobold stones and claws. Another unique monster Noein brought along is goblin stones, as well as fox and boar pelts. Noein reassures Benedict that the quality of the materials is all high, and is very confident about it. Noein leaves the appraisal in Benedict's hands. After their negotiations, both thank each other as they gain excellent deals. The total purchase price the Miles Trading Company offers is 8,000 rebro. From what Noein learned, the standard going rate of all the items would have been 7,600 rebro. Yuri had already briefed Noein on the market prices and estimates, and if there had been anything off in the inventory list, he would have tipped Noein off with a cough, but Yuri never did. Benedict sincerely hopes that they will have the opportunity to become close associates with Noein, with both sides looking forward to working with each other from their own standpoints. When Noein finally leaves, Benedict's attendant asks him if the extra 400 rebro was really necessary. Benedict responds that for them, every new tie to a household is a good thing. If the development of the land succeeds, Benedict is certain that the connection they made could turn into great profit. If the development fails, Benedict would not hesitate to sever ties with Noein so that they would not suffer any real loss. For Benedict, what he achieved in the meeting with Noein was just an easy investment. Meanwhile, Noein shares with the others the exact same thing that Benedict had told his attendant. Shocked, Bart thinks that the negotiations went really smoothly and never thought that Benedict was thinking of them in such a way. Sighing, Noein makes it clear that business is just business. After being treated so politely while factoring all of that in, Noein can see why the Miles Trading Company is as reputable as people say. Noein believes that building a connection with them is a big win. Noein turns to Yuri, asking him if the negotiations they made are a passing grade. Yuri responds and tells Noein that it is more than a pass, and that Noein did more than enough. With their task now finished, Noein suggests that they meet up with Matilda and the others. Meanwhile, Mai senses discomfort while being with Matilda. Unable to bear the tension, Mai turns and asks Matilda if she really hates them that much. Mai reaches her limit and asks Matilda up front if she really hates them that much. May points out how Matilda barely looks at her and mentions how it feels like talking to a wall when she tries to engage in a conversation. May can no longer stand Matilda's behavior, which has been present while they are shopping and even back at the domain. May understands that both of their groups met under messed up circumstances, and she admits that she feels sorry about it. However, May also points out how she is really trying her best to change. If her apologies and everything else that she is doing cannot get past Matilda's disgust toward her, May asks what else she is supposed to do to earn Matilda's trust back. Matilda is caught off guard, as she never expected that May would be so blunt with what she is feeling. Matilda finally speaks up and explains that she does not hate them at all. What bothers Matilda is that she does not know how to deal with anyone besides Noein. Up until now, Noein is the only person Matilda has ever talked to. 1 gold coin is what the slavers thought Matilda's life was worth. In their world, how beastkin are treated depends on where they are. However, for beastkin, the kingdom of Lodberg is pretty much the worst place one can end up. The farther north they go, the more people tolerate beastkin. The farther south they go, the worse it gets. Matilda was sold into slavery in the southeast, and when she turned 5, House Konitz bought her. During her time under House Konitz, Matilda received beatings and was called out for things that she could not do. Matilda would receive a beating for any reason. If she cried, the people inside would hit her again for being annoying. Eventually, Matilda could not see the point in living such a life. Her body was alive, but her heart was dead. Matilda then spent 10 years in such a harsh environment. When Matilda turned 15, House Konitz gave her a new assignment. After being dragged by a maid, a boy was informed that Matilda would be bringing meals from the main house to the annex. Everything else comes out of the monthly allowance, says the maid. If Noein were to need anything, the maid informs her that she would have to write a letter and have Matilda deliver it to the main house. All of Noein's daily needs would have to go through Matilda as ordered by their master, Lord Kivaleft. Before leaving, the maid asks Noein to stay in the annex from now on. As Noein agrees to the conditions being set, Matilda, on the other hand, can only turn her face to the ground, thinking that it is the boy's turn to hit her. Unexpectedly, Noein starts caressing Matilda's hair. Pitying Matilda's situation, Noein mentions how it looks painful for her. However, Noein then reassures her that she will be okay. Back at Noein's old home, he asks about Matilda's name. Bowing her head, Matilda then introduces herself. After Noein shares his name, he expresses how he does not like being called young master and prefers to be called by his first name instead. All of a sudden Matilda starts twitching, after which she outright apologizes and asks to be punished. Matilda looks very confused when instead of beating her up, Noein offers that they eat together. Noein clarifies that it won't be on the floor but at a table with him. Noein informs Matilda that the food does not look that good, but promises that starting tomorrow she will be getting the same meals as him. Aside from the meals, Noein also advises her to take a bath. Matilda becomes embarrassed when Noein mentions that he does not want to go to bed with Matilda being dirty. The first thing Matilda thinks is that Noein does not like someone like her walking around the room while being dirty. Matilda immediately responds that she now understands and says that she would like to go into hot water. Noein hands over a towel and suggests to Matilda that she take her time and make sure that she soaks in the tub. Confused, Matilda thinks about how she still cannot understand what Noein is thinking. From what Matilda can understand, Noein does not want some dirt salve to mess up his room. Upon seeing the bathtub, Matilda's jaw drops and she becomes very excited. After taking a bath, Matilda apologizes for taking way too long bathing. Speechless, Noein pats Matilda's head and clarifies to her that he is not like the others who would hurt her just because she did one simple thing. Matilda was ordered to take her time bathing. Noein asks Matilda to tell him up front what she wants to do and promises that he will not hit her. "I want to take good care of you," says Noein. He then moves to the bed and asks Matilda that they sleep together. Lying beside each other, Noein shares with Matilda how he has always wanted to try being kind to someone for the sole reason that he has always admired kind people who are gentle toward others. Noein has wanted to do it for as long as he can remember. As Noein shares how he wants to let Matilda eat good food, put on clean clothes, and allow her to take a bath every day, Matilda eventually breaks down crying. After that, Noein is nothing but kind to Matilda. Noein gives Matilda back her dignity and teaches her so much about herself and the world. Noein is also the one who teaches Matilda what love is. As long as she is by Noein's side, Matilda does not care if it is the forest, the wastelands, or the battlefield. Regardless of where it might lead, Matilda has already made up her mind that she will follow Noein even if it leads straight to hell. After listening to Matilda's story, Mai finally realizes that the only thing Matilda knows is living in a world where it is just Noein and her. When Mai asks Matilda if Noein is all that is in her head and heart, Matilda responds that Noein is everything to her. Seeing how quickly Matilda responds, Mai makes it clear that it is none of her business if the two of them are happy. However, when it comes to talking to people other than Noein, Mai believes that Matilda should slowly get used to it. Mai admits that Noein is an amazing person and believes that, with his leadership, the domain is going to flourish. When that time comes, Mai points out that many people are going to move in. Since Matilda is Noein's first and longest-serving retainer, Mai informs Matilda that she should at least be able to talk to other people. After hearing Mai out, Matilda agrees with her but wonders how she is supposed to do it. Mai gives Matilda an idea, which is that the two of them become friends so that Matilda can practice with her. Caught off guard, Matilda immediately thinks of the time when Noein asked her to stay with him forever. Matilda agrees to the practice that Mai proposes and asks that Mai take care of her. After the two shake hands, Mai then suggests that they find the others now. 3 months have passed since the start of cultivation. In early June, Noein calls for Matilda and tells her that they have finally done it. Matilda sees the fruit of their hard work and believes that it would certainly go down in Alquist territory history. Noein picks up the potato and states that it is the very first potato grown on his land. Noein then calls everyone's attention, asking them if they also see the potato. Pence tells Noein that he is happy for him. The first time others saw a potato, the first thing they had in mind was how strange of a crop it was. Some even found it a little creepy. Noein was immediately disappointed by how everyone else insulted his potato, telling them that it grew up cute and robust. Yuri was quite surprised when he found out that they could get 10 potatoes despite planting only 1. With one of the advantages being mentioned, Noein reminded everyone again that the potato is the crop that saves nations, a story that has been shared multiple times. With wheat, even in a good year they would already be lucky if they got 15 times what they planted. If it were a bad year, they would most likely get around 3 times the yield, which is hardly worth the effort. On the other hand, potatoes yielded dozens of times more, which truly lives up to its name as the crop that saves nations. Sadly, in Alquist, it is being used merely as a decoration. Pence remembers that they only planted 1 barrel's worth, which he then calculates and estimates could result in 30 or 40 barrels worth of potatoes. With such an amount to be harvested, Bart suggests selling some of it outside the territory. However, Noein didn't want to sell anything outside just yet. He then calls to Yuri, asking him if he now understands how valuable the potatoes really are. After a moment of silence, the first thing Yuri says is, "Military power. If one had a crop that was easy to mass produce and worked as a staple, then they could support tons of soldiers with just a few farmers." In other words, even for territories with the same population, the scale of the army they could maintain would change drastically. "Exactly," says Noein. Currently, Noein's territory is the only one cultivating potatoes for food, which is a massive advantage for them. Noein adds that any smart noble is going to want potatoes, not just as crops but as military supplies. Noein suggests that they first boost production within their own territory. When the time comes for them to export, Noein tells everyone that they must think carefully about who they sell to and at what price, since a single potato could tip everything in their favor. Later that night, everyone is busy preparing for dinner. Some have doubts about whether the meal is edible, so it is suggested to cut out the eyes and cook the food thoroughly. After handing over the plates, Noein gives a toast, as it is their very first harvest. After raising their cups, Noein immediately tastes the food. Seeing Noein's reaction, Matilda asks him how it was. With a bright smile, Noein comments that it was good, mentioning how good the filling was as well. Noein states that he now understands why potatoes work as a staple. Bart, Pence, and Radley stare at each other, quite doubtful about the food. However, since Noein himself already gave his approval, the three are left with no other choice but to try it for themselves. After taking a bite, a smile instantly appears on Bart's face as he finds the food really delicious. What catches Pence off guard is how it has an interesting texture. Meanwhile, Radley stays silent and enjoys himself with the food. Matilda believes that the potatoes would taste much better when cooked using other methods, aside from just boiling them. May agrees with Matilda, as she can already imagine tons of variations. Thinking of slicing the potato thin and frying it, Mai thinks that it would be a perfect snack with a drink. Seeing Noein distracted, Matilda asks him if there is something on his mind. Noein responds that he is just thinking about the times when he was still at the manor, and how he would never have thought that he would be sitting at a table with so many people. With that alone, Noein thinks that he is one lucky man. Mai confronts Noein, telling him that his happiness is way too modest for someone with such big ambitions. Shocked, Noein asks in response if that is really the case. Yes, really, says Mai, and asks Noein not to let himself be satisfied with such a level of happiness. Pence comments that it is nowhere near enough for revenge yet. Bart also points out that, moving forward, their numbers are going to grow more and more. Speaking of numbers, Pence asks Noein if they are going back to preparing fields tomorrow. Bart adds that they currently have tons to harvest, which means that they need extra hands. Extra hands, please, says Mai. Noein hears everyone's concern and apologizes for getting all sentimental when it is just the 7 of them. Thinking about increasing their population, Noein comes to the realization that it is an urgent issue that needs to be handled right away. At the Lord's Manor in Letvik, the Lord of the Konitz Viscounty, Arnold Konitz, receives a report that a group of refugees is petitioning to be let into the city, and he is asked for instructions. When Arnold asks how many, his men respond that it is around 31. The man explains that the people lost their village in a conflict. Hearing the number, Arnold thinks that it is quite a lot. The capital, Letvik, sits at the far northwest edge of the kingdom. Refugees who are bounced around from territory to territory often end up in Letvik. This report is now becoming a problem for Arnold, giving him a headache. As a lord, Arnold cannot simply accept refugees without giving it proper thought. Uncontrolled refugee inflows would mean worse public safety. On the other hand, if Arnold were to turn them away heartlessly, it could potentially lead to an outbreak of violence. Sighing, Arnold wonders what he can do. Thinking of ways to resolve the problem, Arnold wonders if he can make use of that person. For the past 3 months, Arnold has been receiving regular reports about the minor noble who acquired a piece of the Bezel Great Forest just west of his lands. As Noein proceeds with clearing the forests, Arnold is certain that Noein is in need of citizens to migrate and settle there. If Arnold plays his cards right, he believes that he can put Noein in his debt simply by sending the refugees his way. Thinking of the knight Noein, since they have already gone through the trouble of becoming neighbors, Arnold thinks that Noein should make himself as useful as possible to him. Curious, Bart asks Noein what the Lord of Konitz is like. Noein couldn't say much since he only met the Lord once. Bart was a little pleased that Noein had at least met Lord Konitz. Noein explained that it was just a brief meeting, and that it was only to pay his respects before they started clearing. Remembering what Arnold Konitz looked like, the only thing Noein knew of the Lord was that he is a high-ranking noble. What Noein is more certain of is that Arnold Konitz knows plenty about him. Noein would even bet that Arnold already looked into how the neighboring lands used to belong to House Kivaleft. Being the illegitimate son of Maximilian Kivaleft, Noein is certain Arnold Konitz would be able to link Noein to his father easily, unveiling his father's famous scandal once again. Nervous, Bart asks Noein if there's a chance that Arnold would spread word about Noein's background. Bart's worries escalate quickly, thinking how bad the scenario would be if Noein's identity and secret were to be revealed. Pence agrees with Bart, and shares a possible theory where someone might try to get back at Count Kivaleft, and would instead go after Noein. Noein tries to calm everyone down, reassuring them that what they are thinking won't happen. From what Noein observed of Lord Konitz, he is not the type that would go that far. Bart tells Noein that he can't say that for sure, and that there are precedents involved such as themselves. Pence reminds Noein how they once went after him without even knowing Noein was tied to the Count. Noein wanted to tell the two that high nobles aren't that bored as to act so rashly, but instead he tries to calm them again, reassuring them that a small fry noble like him isn't even on their radar, despite being a perfect subject for gossip. Spilling the truth about Noein's birth is the same as spreading Maximilian's scandal, which basically means that they would be picking a fight with House Kivaleft. Certain that his father would act immediately if his name were to become involved, Noein believes that someone as important as Viscount Konitz would want to avoid pointless disputes between nobles. In that sense, Noein is certain that neither Arnold nor his father would dare go up against him. "That's how it is, huh?" says Bart. After listening to Noein's story, Pence thinks that nobles have it rough as well. True scandals, pride, allies, and enemies. Noein thinks that it is just a world stuffed full of annoying things. Despite it all, Noein promises himself huge happiness waiting on the other side if he makes it as a ruling noble. Noein already plans on playing his cards right for the sake of getting back at his father. Changing the topic, Noein points out that they're almost athletic, and suggests that they figure out today's shopping assignments. Noein is surprised when someone calls out his name, making him feel nervous. Noein is then approached and told that they've been instructed by Lord Arnold Konitz to escort Noein and the others to the manor at once for an audience. Waiting in his study, Arnold receives a report that Noein has finally arrived. "Understood," says Arnold. When Noein, the Lord of Alquist, first took possession of the lands 3 months ago, Arnold remembers that Noein only had a single attendant. According to the latest reports, Noein's subjects are still fewer than 10. With the goal of clearing the forest or doing anything at all, Arnold could tell that Noein is short on hands. Planning on providing Noein with refugees to use as manpower, Noein would gain new subjects at no cost to himself. Meanwhile, Arnold could avoid the problems that come with accepting refugees. Arnold gets to do a favor and keep his own lands peaceful, making effective use of Noein, whom Arnold deemed a petty, insignificant noble. When Arnold finally enters the room, Noein stands up, greeting Lord Konitz as it had been a while since they last met, and also thanking him for the invitation. Arnold apologizes to Noein for summoning him on short notice, and also responds that he is pleased to see Noein well. Breaking the ice, Arnold asks Noein if the development is going well. Noein feels honored by Arnold's concern, and shares that they've been able to proceed at their own pace, blessed by favorable weather. Since Noein is clearing a huge area of forest, Arnold brings up the topic of manpower, and how Noein may need a lot of people to clear it. He then asks Noein if he has enough hands. Noein honestly responds that they are short on manpower, but are managing thanks to the people who've gathered under him. Arnold tells Noein that he has a proposal that may interest him. Arnold then starts sharing how, not long ago, 31 refugees arrived in his town and that most of them are young. Hearing the news, Noein touches his chin as he immediately understands what Arnold is trying to pull off. Confronting Lord Konitz, Noein asks Arnold if he is suggesting that he take in the refugees. Arnold appreciates how quickly Noein catches on. Arnold continues by making the proposal more attractive to Noein, mentioning how they are exactly the kind of manpower Noein is looking for. From what Arnold recalls, Noein is only 15, a freshly minted adult boy like Noein is too easy for Arnold to play in the palm of his hand. Noein smiles and agrees that the offer is very good for both Arnold and himself. Arnold gets caught off guard by Noein's response. Noein adds how he imagines that it would be difficult to accept such a large group of refugees into Lettville all at once, especially considering how the current residents might feel. On that point, Noein agrees that his domain is in need of people and is very glad that their interests align so neatly. Noein accepts Arnold's proposal. Arnold also agrees with what Noein said about the proposal being aligned with their interests. The two are pleased that they were able to strike a deal that benefits them both, and hope that they will continue building a good relationship. After the meeting, Arnold lets out a long sigh. Arnold thought that he would be able to write off Noein as just a brat, nothing more than Count Kivaleft's embarrassing bastard. However, Arnold realized that the illegitimate son is considerably more capable than his father, Maximilian Kivaleft. Remembering Noein's answers to his proposal, Arnold also thought of telling Noein that, in a way, he would be granting him more subjects, gaining a favor from Alquist. Arnold never expected that someone as young as Noein could read the situation so well, and keep framing his offer as a simple alignment of interests. Even so, Noein never tried to put himself above Arnold, which made Arnold see that Noein knows his proper place. Reading the report about Noein, Arnold thought of revising his opinion of him upward. Meanwhile, Noein still couldn't shake off his nervousness even after the meeting. Noein then showed Bart that his knees were shaking, pointing out how bad the experience was. Shocked, Bart compared Noein to a baby deer. When Noein was told that he didn't look nervous at all, he felt relieved that his acting came across that way. Noein was very glad that the talks went well and thought that they were truly being favored by God for sending 31 people to their domain. Noein then suggested that they head back to their domain right away and start getting things ready to take the refugees in. Holding his banner, Noein greets the refugees that Arnold sent, introducing himself as the Lord of the Land. Noein took the initiative, approaching a man and asking him if he is the representative of the group. The man introduces himself as Edgar, and shares that he is the heir to the village chief's family. Noein asks Edgar if it's possible for him to know what had happened back at their village. Edgar responds that it may be. Edgar shares how they lived in a frontier settlement near the border, which ended up getting caught up in the fighting. Firstly, the Lord's manor in their territory was attacked, which was then followed by an attack on their village. The Lord's house, which they should have been able to rely on, was wiped out. Edgar and everyone else were forced to keep searching for land that would accept them. As they continued to head north, they eventually reached Lettvik. Families with very small children were taken in by villages along the way, but many others couldn't survive the long journey and the hunger. When Edgar and the others fled the village, there were more than 50 of them, but now they are all that is left. Edgar's father fought alongside the older villagers who were able to buy time for everyone else to escape. Edgar is certain that those who weren't able to escape were most likely wiped out. With their village gone, Edgar tells himself that they have nothing left. After listening and looking at the refugees, Noein realized that the situation is much worse than he anticipated. Noein sees the refugees as similar to himself, someone who is trapped in grief and bitterness. Edgar was puzzled when Noein suddenly told him that he wanted everyone to be happy. Making his intentions clear, Noein moves his face closer to Edgar and tells him that he wants all of them to be happy. Noein asks Edgar and the others to start a new life as people of the Alquist territory, and promises them that he will do whatever he can to make that happen. Extending his hand, Noein asks that, moving forward, they walk a path where they live happily together in his lands. Noein's words brightened everyone's mood, thanking him for allowing them to take shelter in his domain. Others were beyond happy, as they had thought that they were all going to die and would never get to experience such kindness. Seeing Noein getting bombarded, Matilda asks if he is okay. Surprised, Noein responds that he is not. Receiving so many thankful words, Noein turns red and asks Matilda what he did. Unable to hold back his feelings, Noein shouts, expressing how embarrassed he is. This reaction shocked Matilda at first, but then she closed her eyes as she quietly savored her master's emotional growth. The refugees then started to throw Noein up in the air. Yuri and Pence both observed from the side and pointed out how Noein goes on about wanting to be adored, but the second it actually happens, he gets shy. Pence laughed as he truly finds Noein amusing. From what Yuri fully observed, Noein looked incredibly happy. The refugees felt joyous, as they never had dreamed of owning their own land, something that had never happened in their old village. The refugees ask Noein once again if what he said is the truth. Noein responds that he is indeed giving farmland to all 31 new households. Watching over everyone, Matilda comments on how happy everyone looks. Noein calls Edgar and asks him if he also understood that he would receive farmland like the others. Shocked, Edgar responds that he does and promises Noein that he will do his best to represent everyone and keep things running smoothly. To motivate Edgar, Noein informs him that if his work keeps going well, he may get a chance to become Noein's agricultural retainer. The news comes as a surprise to Edgar, as he never would have dreamed of becoming a retainer. Edgar bows his head, promising Noein to serve him with his life. Yuri comments on how Noein is once again making another bold move. Although Yuri sees it as a smart move, he is not sure about the long term. Really, says Matilda. Yuri explains that when a village is developed, it's either a new project for the ruling nobles or their retainers trying to climb the ranks. Even if commoners help clear the land, the territory ends up being controlled by people connected to the lord. Even moving to a new settlement doesn't make one an independent farmer without tons of work at first. Yuri points out that giving land to people they don't trust can spark trouble at a later time. Hearing that, Matilda wonders why Noein decided to do such an act. Yuri asks Matilda if she can see how thrilled the new residents are to receive farmland and how grateful they are to Noein. Yuri adds that the refugees' situation went from being hopeless to having wealth and status, something that they had never dreamed of before. That only shows how valuable farmland is to a farmer. Farmland doesn't move. It stays put, so they'll never forget what they owe Noein. Because of that, the refugees would certainly support Noein much more strongly now. By giving them land, Noein has actually earned their loyalty. I see, I understand, says Matilda. The land grants will eventually benefit Noein, being generous with an eye on the future. Matilda becomes even more impressed with how clever Noein is and that he is truly one talented individual. Yuri, on the other hand, thought he was saying that the methods used were kinda brutal, but guesses that it never reached Matilda. Yuri brings up how Matilda is now speaking to them a lot more lately, not just with Noein. Matilda does not deny what Yuri noticed, and even tells him that engaging with them was Mai's suggestion. Yuri smiles as he realizes that Mai confronted Matilda about her behavior toward them. Back at his tent, Noein is planning on raising funds and knows that he must think ahead. Though Noein still has some of the hush money he squeezed out from his father plus the money they are making from hunting, what worries Noein is the upcoming winter, which is just within 6 months. With all that they have, Noein can't afford craftsmen to build houses. If things continue as they are, Noein is certain that they will be spending the winter in tents. Before that happens, Noein wants to get some serious money collected so they can build homes for everyone. In order for the others to understand the problem, Noein asks them to imagine spending the winter in tents. Bart imagines how people would freeze to death. Noein is told to use the extra lumber to throw up some shacks. Noein thinks that if he could help it, he really wants real houses, and not something just slapped together. Noein can only imagine how cold it would be inside the makeshift sheds. Noein wants farm homes for his people, where none of them suffer. Everyone is first touched by what Noein says, but it immediately changes when Noein starts talking about how he wants to add fluffy beds to sleep in, and hot baths. Noein also thinks of adding a second floor where one can see everyone's homes. Bart interrupts Noein, asking him if what he is wishing for can be achieved within 6 months. Noein reassures them that he already has a solid money-making idea, which is finding an ore vein in the Restio Mountains. The Arkvist domain sits at the kingdom's far northwest edge, inside the Great Bezel Forest on the western border. The kingdom's northern border runs along the Restio Mountains. The Restio Mountains have so many ore veins that most nobles with northern lands are running some kind of mine. Noein is not so sure if there is an ore vein in the part bordering their domain, but he believes that it is their best shot. Yuri points out that it would be half a day on foot, which is doable for them. With the refugees now added as their fellow citizens, Bart mentions how they can now spare more people to do a survey. Edgar also believes that they can grab useful people from the newcomers. Yuri proposes being part of the survey team along with Radley and a few people from Edgar's recommendations. Noein asks if it would be bad if he also came along, pointing out how he has a golem that may prove useful. Yuri's expression instantly turns sour as he tells Noein that it may be too hard on Noein physically. Noein admits that he can't argue with what Yuri says, but also mentions that he has been walking more on supply runs lately instead of riding the cart. Noein promises that his legs and back are now getting better. More than anything, Noein points out that he is the one who brought the matter up and he doesn't want to dump the task on everyone and just walk away. Seeing how persistent Noein is, Pence eventually breaks and agrees to have Noein join them, but only once. The next day, the survey team starts scouring through the Great Bezel Forest. Noein realizes that he may have overestimated himself as he is now heavily catching his breath. Noein eventually collapses from exhaustion. Everyone keeps calling Noein's name after seeing him fall down. "Called it," says Yuri. Noein apologizes for slowing everyone down. Tears flowing down his face, Noein tells himself that he really is a failure as a lord. Yuri speaks up and tells Noein that they've been walking kilometers through trackless forest. On top of that, they've also been climbing around steep mountain terrain. Yuri tells Noein to look at them in order for him to understand that they only brought people who have enough muscle to handle the mountain paths. Yuri tells Noein that there's no need for him to push himself out in the forest. Seeing how depressed his lord is, Yuri makes it clear to Noein that it does not mean that he is dead weight. Until a few months ago, Noein was locked up in a tiny shack. Having no activities to build up his body, Yuri mentions how it is going to take forever to build Noein's stamina back to normal, and even longer to get the kind of strength one needs for mountain hiking. On the other hand, being locked away all that time meant that Noein got to study a lot, which is why Noein is much more knowledgeable than anyone would expect for someone of his age to be. Yuri and the others do not know half of what Noein does. He also adds that they suck at negotiations and strategy planning. Radley agrees with what Yuri says as he mentions that he is better in a fight than Bart, but can't charm people like Bart does. The point is, everyone's got their role, says Yuri. Seeing Noein stepping up and trying to lead from the front makes Yuri and the others want to follow Noein, but that is different. Yuri and everyone else trust Noein and wish for him to trust them just as much as well. This shocks Noein, which makes him finally change his mind and stay behind. Noein's exhaustion gradually seeps away as he tells Matilda how truly lucky he is. Noein then asks Yuri how he can support them with his knowledge if he is not with them. An idea is proposed as Noein is told that they know how to perform a little magic. At a hillside, Yuri tries to contact Noein, asking him if he can be heard. Noein responds that he can hear the voice in his head, loud and clear. It is then explained to Noein that Far Talk is a communication spell that lets one sense someone's magic from far away and talk to them. Noein looks very impressed and asks Yuri if he is a communication mage. Yuri humbly responds that his magic is half-baked and nothing compared to the real thing. However, Noein thinks differently, as he remembers that Yuri used the exact same spell when he first attacked Noein, a coordination which Noein finds incredible. Going back to the topic, Yuri reports to Noein that they found something weird while exploring a strange rock. A strange rock, says Noein. Yuri describes the rock to Noein as having part of it blue. Noein wants to clarify and asks Yuri if the rock itself is blue, with no crystals showing. Yuri responds telling Noein that he is correct and that the rock itself is stained blue. More curious, Noein asks how big of an area it is. Yuri tells Noein that it is pretty big, and that it looks like it goes deep and not just along the surface. Yuri tries scraping it and is surprised at how soft it is for a rock. Noein asks if it can be worked by hand. Yuri responds that they can scratch it with a knife. From what Noein gathers, the rock is soft enough that Yuri's gear can cut it. A rock stained like pigment, colored blue. Noein smiles as he states that they finally did it. Hearing no clear response, Yuri tries reaching out to Noein. Noein apologizes and explains that he got momentarily excited. Noein then orders Yuri to break off as much of the rock as he is able to carry and bring it back. Based on how Yuri describes the rock, Noein believes that what the survey team found is raw lapis lazuli, a huge discovery that will bring real wealth to the domain, says Noein. Noein's mother was considered a monster when it came to material desire. She had clawed her way up from being a servant in the slums to becoming the mistress of a great noble, spending her days drowning in fine food, draped in luxurious clothes and surrounded by expensive art. A greedy, selfish person like that was never liked by anyone. Noein's mother only kept him to force him to listen to her endless bragging. If Noein didn't respond with the right flattery, he would be met with fierce violence. This led to Noein listening to his mother as intently as he could all day, every day. Accessories were laid with lapis lazuli, polished ornaments were made from the raw stone, rare and costly pigments were ground from its powder, and paintings were done in those colors. Nona remembered that lapis lazuli was his mother's favorite, All the charm that was praised, the trivia that his mother lectured about on how to tell the real from the fake, and how much the value skyrockets once it is turned into pigment, every bit of that information has been engraved deep into Noeina's mind. Holding a piece of the gem, Noein was very much grateful toward his mother, as the agonizing days he had experienced before now felt precious to him. Bart trembled in fear while listening to Noein's chuckle. Upon realizing that he was now frightening his men, Noein apologized and explained that it was not his intention. Going back to the main topic of the conversation, Noein stated that thanks to the lapis lazuli, they no longer had to worry about development funds anymore. Noein further explained to the two that the batch they brought back as a test was already worth a commoner's yearly income. Realizing how much the rock was worth shocked everyone. Nervously, Radley mentioned that he had hauled the gem back as if it were an old rock. Noein smiled as he informed everyone that wholesale prices would also shift. May, on the other hand, was still in shock at how impressive the gem was. She then started mentioning soft beds, a nice hot bath, and a house with a second floor. May informed Noein that he could do all those things with the money they would get. Noein was surprised at first and then smiled upon realizing that his dreams now kept getting bigger. Returning to Letvik, Bart, who was tasked with watching the luggage, asked Noein what happened with the lapis trade with Miles Trading Company. Putting up a peace sign, Noein responded that the deal went insanely well. After deciding to sell their lapis to Miles Trading Company, Noein met up with Benedict and shared that he had taken an interest in gemstones. In Noein's plan, his first step was to make Benedict think that he had come to buy. The plan's purpose was to get Benedict to let his guard down by pegging Noein as some foolish noble trying to show off without money to back it up. When Noein mentioned that he had particularly taken an interest in lapis lazuli but had no knowledge about gemstones, Benedict offered to educate Noein regarding gemstones. For Noein's second plan, while Benedict continued to look down on him, he would let Benedict share information about how valuable lapis lazuli is. For the third step, Noein had to let the flow of the conversation make Benedict say the wholesale rate himself so they would not be lowballed later. After learning the wholesale price of the gem, Noein thanked Benedict for it. When it was Benedict's turn to ask, he asked Noein if he had reached a concrete decision regarding his purchase. Noein acted confused and apologized to Benedict for misleading him, as he then explained that when he mentioned that he had taken an interest in lapis lazuli, he meant that he was interested in selling it as a business. Hearing this darkened Benedict's expression. After stating his purpose, the negotiations went as smoothly as silk, and a deal was made to sell the gemstones to the Miles Trading Company as raw stone. Noein also cleared it with Viscount Konitz and even introduced them to a mining engineer. Noein felt proud that someone who could teach their people how to work a mine was now coming. Listening to Noein, Bart was certain that the talk Noein had with the Viscount was its own nightmare. When Noein suggested that they would be leaving, his men asked where they were headed next. Noein had been told by Benedict about a construction firm with a great reputation and had decided to talk to them about building houses in the Alquist domain. Arriving at the construction firm, Noein immediately stated his purpose, which was for the firm to build his manor and 13 houses for the commoners, all of which had to be finished before winter came. Noein also shared his plan of increasing the population and informed the firm that he might need even more houses later. Noein was thinking that they could have his golems help with some of the heavy labor which he believed would make the deadline doable. Seeing the owner's reaction, Noein asked if it was too much for the firm. The owner responded that it was not, but clarified that in terms of workload they could finish it with time to spare, and that they could secure enough craftsmen and laborers. The problem was that the firm did not have anyone who could oversee all of it. Noein asked if the owner was referring to a foreman with an open schedule. The owner made it clear that they did have one foreman who was free, but that person was part of the Beastman race. The owner introduced Noein to the foreman and informed Noein that the man was one of the firm's master builders named Dimitri. When Noein tried to shake Dimitri's hand, he was ignored. Seeing such disrespect, the owner immediately told Dimitri to apologize to Noein. The owner explained that although Dimitri was the fastest and most meticulous craftsman they had, he was also a prickly person. Noein smiled and stated that it did not bother him, as he explained that he came for skill and not charm. Intrigued, Dimitri asked Noein if he could ask him something. Glaring at Noein, Dimitri asked Noein if he had been called there just to be mocked for being a beastman. No, said Noein. Dimitri then asked Noein about Matilda, who was standing behind him. Seeing how Matilda did not look like a slave, Dimitri was very much curious about her relationship with Noein. The owner became angry with Dimitri for asking such a private matter. Noein stopped the owner and responded to Dimitri, telling him that Matilda was a capable attendant who supported him and also someone who was very dear to him. Hearing the reason, Dimitri turned and stated that work was work and that it did not matter who was asking, and that he was only there to trade. With Dimitri leaving right away, it made the owner become more angry, and he called out to Dimitri to return. Dimitri ended up accepting the job, but Noein did not feel like they had won any trust at all. With the construction work starting, Noein mentioned how many of the villagers were clearly bothered by how many beastmen there were among the craftsmen. Matilda also pointed out that the people's reactions were not that unusual for citizens of the Lohberg kingdom. Kind people like Noein or retainers who came from a merit-based society of mercenaries where there was little prejudice were the only exceptions. Normally, just being a beastman was enough to earn a dirty look, said Matilda. The only reason Matilda was not being persecuted as a rabbit folk was because of her connection to Noein. Muttering Matilda's name, Noein then called for Mai and Edgar and made it clear to them that everyone was to understand not to treat his guests badly, as he did not want to have to scold or punish anyone. The two community representatives were frightened by Noein's warning. With both Mai and Edgar following orders, Noein wondered next what else he could do. Noein wanted the craftsmen to feel good about working at his place, making him wish that there was something he could do for them, something that they would genuinely appreciate. Dimitri noticed Noein and asked him what he was doing. Holding a bag full of bread, Noein explained that he had brought lunch for the craftsmen. Yeah, we know, said Dimitri. He then pointed out to Noein that it was all anyone was talking about, getting treats every single day. Seeing the other beastmen enjoy the food, Noein looked very pleased upon hearing that people were talking about him, which made him feel happy. Dimitri responded, telling Noein that that was not the point he was trying to make. Dimitri asked Noein if he planned on taming the beastmen by bribing them with food. Enraged, Dimitri told Noein that he could look down on all of them all he wanted, but made it clear that they still had their pride. Noein stopped Dimitri, offering him some warm bread. Noein then made it clear that for him race did not matter when someone was working their hardest. Gritting his teeth, Dimitri finally caved in and admitted defeat. Dimitri had absolute confidence in his craft and told Noein to leave his manor and his people's houses to him, reassuring Noein that he would build them perfectly. Sometime later, Dimitri asked Noein if it had met his expectations. Noein responded that it had, and thanked Dimitri for it. Noein now believed that the Alquist domain could finally take its first proper steps as a civilized land. Noein then asked Matilda if she too thought that their new home was wonderful. Yes, Matilda responded, stating that it was a splendid manor, worthy of Noein. After some time, the two took a bath together. Noein felt like he was in heaven, as he finally experienced taking a bath for the first time in ages. Noein told Matilda that 6 months ago they were just living in tents, but now their dreams were coming true bit by bit. It is Lord Noein, said Matilda. Hugging Noein, Matilda promised to follow Noein's dreams anywhere from then on. Noein thanked Matilda for always giving him support and loved her for it. Anna helps out at her family's shop in the capital town of Letvik. Noein, the lord of the neighboring domain, has been one of their best and most loyal customers for over half a year. At first, it would always just be the lord and his attendant, Matilda. But lately, Anna has noticed that Noein visits their place looking happy, talking about taking in refugees and even building a manor. Anna is so jealous, as she has never been outside of Letvik. Whenever Anna listens to Noein's stories, it makes her want to go out and explore the world as well, a world that she has only ever seen and heard about in stories. Anna was startled when she heard her name being called, ordering her to help out. Frightened, Anna hurriedly went out and said that she was coming. Anna knows that what she is asking for is just wishful thinking. For Anna, she believes that her life has already been decided and that she will never leave their place. Back in Alquist, Yuri felt overwhelmed knowing that he now finally has a place of his own. Yuri thanks Noein for prioritizing their home among the many things that they have planned. Noein guesses that the other houses will soon be done, but he believes that the house for his head retainer and his girlfriend should come first. Yuri looks surprised and asks Noein about the girlfriend he is referring to. Yuri later realizes and tells Noein that he understands. Seeing Yuri turn his back so suddenly, Noein calls out his name. Walking towards Mai, Yuri bends a knee and asks for her hand in marriage. This sudden proposal not only surprises Mai but also Noein. Startled, Mai is still in disbelief and asks Yuri not to scare her so suddenly. After a moment of mumbling to herself, Mai then decides and accepts Yuri, hoping that they will be happy together. Both Noein and Matilda are very happy for the two, congratulating them and throwing flowers at them. Since the two are getting married, Noein wants to throw a celebration party for them. Noein plans to have their outfits tailored, set up a venue, and also realizes that the holiday in December worked so well and suggests that they plan for it. Noein then whispers to Yuri, telling him that they should save the lovey-dovey stuff for when they get a home. Embarrassed, Yuri tells Noein to shut up. Since everything has been settled, Noein suggests that they now get ready for the winter and stock up. That is what Noein would have wanted, but reality is merciless toward them. With the lapis lazuli mining and house construction, their financial situation has surged forward and the contracts keep piling higher by the day. Organizing the accounts and reports while creating a new budget proposal, the paperwork alone is enough to drown Noein out on the front lines. Noein is still developing golems for them. Now being tasked with administrative work as well, Noein can only think that there is so much for him to do. Wobbling his way to his chair, when Noein finally got to sit down, he also felt relaxed. However, his peace was cut short as Matilda called his name again. Noein apologized and explained that he had dozed off. Not at all. Please take a rest, says Matilda, offering Noein some tea. Yes, please, says Noein. Bart enters the room, informing Noein that he has the reports ready. However, sensing some ominous aura coming from Noein, Bart stops and asks Noein if he wants him to come back later. In response, Noein tells Bart that it is fine, as he chooses to look at the report now. Puzzled, Bart suggests that Noein have his tea first, and that he should take a break, as they can tell that their lord is working himself to the bone. Noein asks Bart if he truly thinks so. Bart responds, making it clear to Noein that all of them, his retainers, think so. pleased to hear how his retainers are very concerned for him. Noein remembers that Yuri is currently out mining most of the time and that the former refugees are swamped with fieldwork. The ex-mercenaries are also busy with patrolling, supply runs, and keeping everyone organized. Noein thinks that things would be a lot easier if they had someone who could handle their internal affairs. When Noein mentions that it is time for him to go out scouting, Bart asks Noein if he already has someone in mind. Noein responds and tells Bart that it is someone he has met before. Visiting the Kleber Trading Company, Noein, along with his retainers, greets Eliza. Greeting Noein in return, Eliza mentions how it has been a while since they last met. After apologizing for not being able to stop by more often, Noein proceeds to purchase some of Eliza's products. Eliza once again thanks Noein for purchasing so much from their shop. Changing the topic, Noein tells Eliza how he was hoping to get her advice on something. When Eliza asks what it is, Noein comes clean and reveals that he is looking for someone who can handle his domain's internal affairs, paperwork, accounting, and more. Noein wonders if Eliza knows anyone who is good at the tasks that he has mentioned. Listening to Noein, Bart realizes that Noein is planning to ask for Eliza's help in finding the right person for the job. Eliza states, confirming that Noein is looking for someone who can do office work and is also willing to move to Noein's domain. Noein responds, telling Eliza that she is correct. Noein does not care about the person's age, gender, race, or background, as all he wants is a capable person. After thinking of the best candidate, Eliza eventually gives up and apologizes to Noein, since no one comes to her mind. Eliza believes that Noein would be able to locate someone, as long as they can read and write. One can usually find decent work here in Letvik, says Eliza. Noein agrees and guesses that anyone with those skills probably already has a job. Anna is startled when Noein suddenly asks her if she knows anyone who is good with numbers. Not expecting a question from Noein, Anna ends up stuttering, unable to construct any sentence. Seeing how Anna reacts, Noein informs Anna that he has asked her such a question and thanks the family for their assistance before leaving. Not wanting an opportunity to be wasted, Anna asks Noein to wait. Speaking about the job that Noein mentioned, Anna asks him if she can take it. This greatly surprises Eliza, who asks her daughter what she is saying. Confronting her mother, Anna mentions that she is serious and that she truly wishes to live in Noein's domain. Eliza starts scolding Anna, revealing that the stories her father had told her were only the fun parts and not the dangerous ones. Outside of their home, the stories that Anna has heard are far from reality, and Eliza is certain that Anna will not like it. Eliza asks her daughter if she truly understands what it means to live in Noein's domain. Eliza turns to Noein and tells him that she means no disrespect by what she is about to say. Noein responds and tells Eliza to speak freely and not to worry about him. The Alquist domain is not the same as Viscount Konitz's domain, as Eliza continues to point out that the Alquist domain is still developing and is very much considered countryside. No matter where Anna looks, she will see nothing but fields and houses that are recent additions. Noein laughs, as he thinks that Eliza has a point. Despite all the things her mother has said, Anna is still willing to move to Alquist, as it may be a once-in-a-lifetime chance for her to spend her life in Letvik as just another merchant's daughter. It is the first and maybe last chance for Anna to choose a different path than the one she was born into. Anna pleads with her mother as she does not want her chance to slip by her, not wanting to live a life of regret but instead to live the life she wants. Letting out a long sigh and knowing her daughter very well, even if Eliza were to give every reason for her not to go, she would still choose to leave. Anna is the type of person who is quiet but stubborn, smart and shrewd. Not able to force her daughter to change her mind, Eliza eventually agrees to let Anna go. However, she first wants to hear the details from Noein, and Anna may freely leave if she is satisfied with what she hears. Surprised and filled with joy, Anna asks her mother if she truly means what she says and thanks her for giving permission. Eliza asks Anna if she was even listening, reminding her that she first has to hear the details. No one expected that Noein would end up recruiting Anna. From Noein's perspective, Anna seemed interested in exploring the world, and he simply decided to choose her. Bart pointed out to Noein how he could have just directly appointed her, as he believed that Anna would have been happy if Noein had directly requested her. For things like this, Noein believes that it is important for one to come to their own conclusions and make their own choices. If possible, Noein wants Anna herself to take the first step. It is better for Anna to build experiences through her own reflection and realization, and Noein plans to guide her along the way. That is only one of the reasons. Unlike Yuri and the former refugees, Anna still has a home she can go back to. Simply giving her a place to live will not be enough for her to truly revere Noein. Noein needs to give Anna the tools she needs to grow even further. The favor of gladly granting the wish Anna holds deep in her heart. All of it comes to be because they are all bound together by affection, lord and subject. When Noein is asked if something is wrong, he responds that he was just thinking about how much easier the work will be now. A few days later, Anna informs Noein that she has finished going through the batch of documents. Noein's eyes shimmer, seeing how fast Anna works. Just as Noein thought, Anna is the perfect person for the job, as he even comments that Anna's work is better than what he does. Noein is truly glad that Anna decided to come and that he will be counting on her moving forward. "Yes, I'll do my very best," says Anna. Starting off the executive meeting, the steward captain, Yuri, informs Noein that there are no problems with the month's lapis lazuli mining. Yuri also brings up what their engineer has said, which is that when they shift to full-scale development he wants to relocate to Alquist and start his own company. When it is Pence's turn to report, he states that they have only had some minor squabbles between villagers, but other than that it has been peaceful overall. On Radley's end it is the same as well, and he decides to give Rick and Dance some training between patrols. Edgar hands out the draft for next year's farming plan and states that he has organized their crops, keeping potato production as their top priority. Bart gathers some intel in Letvik and learns that a subjugation force has been formed to hunt orcs in the eastern noblelands. As steward of women's affairs, Mai hands out the potato recipes that they have developed to every household in the territory, since it is still pretty unfamiliar to the new settlers. Anna then shares with everyone that she has organized their food stores by type and believes that they will be able to make it through winter just fine. Anna also suggests that everyone take a look at next year's draft budget. Noein informs everyone that Dimitri and the other Beastkin artisans have put in requests to move into Alquist. Since they will be needing new buildings for a while, Noein thinks that it is great news. Noein asks if that covers everyone's reports, and mentions that sharing information like this in meetings really helps clear things up, and he hopes that they keep doing it regularly. To wrap the meeting up, Noein asks if anyone has any proposals. Raising her hand, Matilda asks if she can bring up a matter. Matilda mentions how the settlement has been growing steadily. This makes her think that it may be time for them to give their place an official name. Noein agrees, since the settlement in the Alquist V's county is quite a mouthful. Says Noein. Bart also thinks that it would be more convenient if the place had a proper name. Makes sense, says Yuri as he suggests that they work on deciding an official name. With that being said, the area is going to be called the capital once the territory grows. Noein does not just want to slap some random name on it. Matilda raises her hand once again, wanting to suggest a name for their place. This act shocks Noein, as he never expects Matilda to voice her opinion twice. Wanting to hear more, Noein asks Matilda to speak her mind. Wanting to take Noein's name, Matilda wishes to call the place Noeina and asks everyone how it sounds. Noein's smile instantly vanishes and is replaced with a confused look. With Noein as the founding lord, Matilda points out that Noein is laying the foundation of the Alquist territory right now. Matilda is certain that with Noein's skills he will keep developing the land. Matilda believes that Noein deserves to have his name etched in history forever, which is why she thinks of using his name as the capital's name. Noein orders Matilda to slow down and tells her that he appreciates how she feels. But Noein points out how the name is a little on the nose. When asking for Yuri's and Pence's opinions, the two do not oppose it and even think that it is perfect. Shocked, Noein does not expect that the two would fully support the name Matilda came up with. Radley also speaks up and thinks that it is a good name. Both Bart and Edgar also show favor toward the name and believe that Noein should be remembered and that his people would love it. As Noein asks for everyone to wait, Yuri asks Noein if he does not like the name. Mai then mentions how it is perfectly normal for a town to be named after their lord. Anna mentions Letvik as an example, sharing how it originates from the first lord's name. Noein is too embarrassed to answer and ends up stuttering. For Noein, using the name would make him look like some narcissist who is obsessed with fame and dying to plaster his name everywhere. Noein wants his vassals and people to love him, but not because he wants to act all high and mighty. Seeing his three vassals holding off their laughter, Noein cries out in embarrassment. A few days later, Noein visits the Lord of Konitz Viscounty, Arnold. Arnold greets Noein, asking him how he is doing and what brought him to Letvik. Arnold has heard that Noein has something to tell him. Arnold is starting to get nervous since Noein looks unusually serious. Arnold begins wondering what Noein is after, making him stay on guard. Knowing Noein, Arnold is certain that Noein came to negotiate something. Noein finally speaks up and tells Arnold that he only came to let him know that their settlement has been named. Closing his eyes in embarrassment, Noein pulls out a card and tells Arnold that the settlement is called the capital of Noeina. Arnold is too confused to react, maintaining silence. When Arnold finally speaks up, he asks Noein if that is all. Noein responds that it is. Although Noein is very much embarrassed to have his name used and flaunted, he cannot refuse what his people want. Before going to Letvik, Yuri apologizes to Noein for teasing him. Yuri mentions that all of them and everyone in the territory obtained a new life because of Noein. When their lives hit a dead end, Noein was the one who gave them new hope and new chances. Yuri and the others owe Noein. If the land carries Noein's name, no one is going to argue with it. Noein explains to Arnold that his stewards insisted that it was the right name. Looking at Noein's face, Arnold thinks about how Noein's face finally looks his age. Arnold understands and tells Noein that it is a fine name. However, Noein can tell that Arnold is just teasing him after seeing Arnold smirk. After the meeting, Noein meets up with Bart. When Noein is asked if the report went well, Noein responds that he is done with the running gag. Noein suggests that they hurry up and get back to Noeina since they still have some celebrating to do. At Noeina Central Square, the biggest holiday in the Kingdom of Lodberg is being celebrated. In the cities, each household celebrates on its own, while in villages, the entire community feasts together, gathering around lavish food. Noein mentions how he has never seen a feast so grand in his life. Surprised, Pence asks Noein if that is really the truth. Noein reminds Pence that he was locked away. Dressing up like a noble, Yuri thinks that it is quite impressive that a tiny farming village could celebrate on such a scale. Seeing Yuri in a suit, Noein praises how great it looks on him. Yuri is very pleased and glad to hear compliments from Noein. Noein is certain that Yuri is one of today's stars. Everyone's attention is drawn to Mai, who is wearing a beautiful dress. When both Yuri and Mai approach each other, the two share a kiss in front of everyone. Everyone congratulates the two on their wedding. During the celebration, Matilda approaches Mai in hopes that Mai will accept her sincerest congratulations on her marriage. Matilda also praises Mai's outfit, pointing out how wonderful it looks, making her even more beautiful. "Oh Mai, thank you," says Mai. Mai never thought that she would end up being married to Yuri and even owning a house. At the start of this year, when she was still a mercenary, Mai could not have imagined it, stating how she will never be able to repay Noein for everything he has done for her. Matilda is certain that Noein is just as joyful about their happiness as Mai is. Changing the conversation, Mai asks Matilda if she has any plans to marry Noein. Mai mentions that all of them can see how Noein and Matilda love each other in a way that is far from ordinary. If Matilda wanted, Noein could free her from slavery, and she could even become Noein's lawful wife. Mai is shocked when Matilda reveals that Noein brought up that topic once himself. Noein told Matilda, "If that's what you want, Matilda," but Matilda chose of her own will to remain a slave from then on. As a member of the Beastkin, Matilda shows her slave brand to Mai, telling her that it will never disappear. If she were to become Noein's wife, she is certain that she would be a shackle on Noein's life as a lord, holding Noein back. In a country where Beastkin are discriminated against, Matilda asks Mai what she thinks would happen if a lord took a former Beastkin slave as a wife. Matilda can already imagine the harsh consequences that Noein would face. Mai apologizes for not thinking through what she had said. Seeing Mai so down, Matilda reveals that what she said was only the superficial reason. In reality, Matilda wishes to be Noein's slave. Every happy memory she has comes from being at Noein's side as a slave, and she finds peace in her current position. Matilda also points out that Noein is a noble, a title that comes with responsibilities. Someday Noein will need to marry a lady from some noble house. Even then, Noein swears to Matilda that he will keep her close for the rest of their lives. Living in their current situation, Matilda will not be a burden on Noein. She will be able to stay close in a role that is hers to keep, serving Noein while receiving his favor for as long as they both live. Staring at Noein and seeing him smile, Matilda cannot help but smile back. Looking at Matilda, Mai finally understands that Matilda is just as happy as she is, and exactly because of who she is now. Mai also comes to the realization that it is not her place nor anyone else's to interfere, as that happiness belongs to Matilda alone. For Mai, it sounds like a beautiful kind of relationship, and she truly likes that idea. Mai hopes that both of them can keep living by the sides of the ones they love. In the year 211, the first year of development ends and winter comes. After it passes, the long-awaited spring arrives, bringing with it a looming spring storm. Wanting to be loved, that is Noein's deepest wish, and he works tirelessly to make it happen. Noein's schemes have paid off, and their domain has become a peaceful place where people are genuinely happy. But no matter how hard he works to build a paradise, there is always someone who would mess it up. People's hearts can be unpredictable or sometimes completely insane. Seeing a crime being committed, Noein stops a man, ordering him to hand over what he stole. Noein does not care what excuse the man gives, pointing out that stealing is a crime. The man apologizes and explains that he was not thinking straight and admits his mistake. From the intel Pence gathered, the man is called Bandera, a new guy who arrived in town 2 weeks ago. Bandera was starving and could not help himself. Bandera reveals that he had been doing whatever it takes to survive for so long and that his old habits just kicked in. Noein understands and decides to cover Bandera's mistake this time. After handing Bandera the apple, Noein states that if one works hard in the domain they are in, they will make sure that they will never go hungry. Noein advises Bandera not to steal anymore and to be more careful next time. Before leaving, Pence glares at Bandera one last time. Returning to the manor, Pence mentions that there is something that is going to be brought up in today's meeting, and it is about the thief Bandera. Pence reveals that Bandera cuts in line at the well, picks fights frequently, and trespasses on other people's land. Each thing alone is not worth bothering Noein, but Pence cannot help but worry since Bandera has been causing some kind of problem almost every day. At Bandera's pre-arrival interview, he seemed quiet and withdrawn. Pence believes that Bandera was merely putting on an act in front of Noein. Pence reveals that Bandera took it too far when he made trouble again yesterday. Pence had already warned Bandera, telling him that Noein would judge him himself. Despite his warning, Bandera still went and stole. Pence guesses that Bandera did not know Noein was watching. When Bart finally finds Pence, he realizes that he has disturbed their conversation and apologizes to Noein. When Bart is asked what is wrong, Bart reports a fight between residents out by the field. Bart thinks that he should let Pence know since he is the one who handles security. Pence has his suspicions and asks if it is Bandera again. Surprised, Bart asks Pence if he has already heard. No, that was something else. Go on, says Pence. From Bart's report, Bandera apparently tried cutting through someone's field, and when the owner's daughter told him off, Bandera got mad and shoved the daughter, injuring her in the process. Since Pence had already told Bandera that the country's lord would judge his crime himself, Noein turns serious and tells Pence that they will be leaving. Arriving at the field, Noein confronts Bandera, who is now kneeling. Bandera explains to Noein that it was all just a misunderstanding and that he is not the one at fault. Wanting to hear Bandera's side, Noein allows him to explain himself. Bandera admits that he was wrong to cut through someone else's field, but since nothing was planted there yet, Bandera thought that it would not be a big deal. However, the owner's daughter started screaming at Bandera and even had a sickle, which frightened him. It scared Bandera, which resulted in him pushing her. Bandera regrets his actions but points out that he got scared as well. Noein asks the people around if there is any lie in what Bandera is saying. The girl responds that there is none, and that Bandera is telling the truth. Seeing that both parties were hurt, Noein is not sure how to handle the situation and what would be the right call. A lord can judge people however he sees fit, but the kingdom has laws that everyone knows and must work within those boundaries. Noein does not want to stray from those customs because he refuses to become that kind of lord, one whose mood decides everything and makes people cower in fear. From Pence's report and from the way the injured girl looks like she has more to say, all logic points to Bandera being the one to blame. However, Bandera too is telling the truth, so Noein cannot come down too hard on him. If the girl really did go after Bandera angrily with a sickle, Noein has to take that into account as well. Since Bandera admitted his faults, Noein thinks that the best move he has to make is a punishment severe enough to warn him, but not so harsh that he takes back his confession. Deciding on the punishment, Noein announces his judgment. Since Bandera did not cause any permanent damage but is still responsible for what happened, and on top of that has also been causing trouble and has not improved at all, Noein sentences Bandera to a whipping for trespassing and assault. Noein informs Bandera that as his lord it is his duty to protect him, but Noein also points out that Bandera is not the only one who is under his protection. Wanting to help Bandera understand his mistakes, Noein hopes that Bandera learns from the punishment he receives and stops causing trouble for everyone. Noein asks Bandera if he understands what he is trying to say. Bandera responds, telling Noein that he understands and will stop. Noein shifts his focus onto the injured girl and apologizes to her for failing her and letting her get hurt. The girl tells Noein that he does not need to apologize. Noein plans to bring a doctor from Letvik to make sure there is no lasting damage. Noein also plans to move Bandera's plot away from the girl's plot and have someone keep an eye on him for a while. Noein hopes that the punishment Bandera receives is enough for him to turn things around. Later that night, a girl who is also a beastkin is shoved onto the ground. Wanting to scream, Bandera orders her to be quiet, threatening to kill her if she disobeys. Bandera is annoyed at how everyone keeps running their mouths at him. Sick of it all, Bandera has a lot of frustration to work out and asks that the girl keep him company. It does not matter to Bandera if the girl is a beastkin slave, as all he wants is to have someone on whom he can let out his frustrations. Bandera is surprised when someone suddenly grabs his shoulder. Upon turning around, Noein ends up receiving a punch in the face. Standing in front of Noein once again, Bandera explains that it was just a sudden urge. As a single guy, Bandera shares that he could not hold himself back. Regardless of the fact that the woman he attacked was a beastkin slave, Bandera admits that what he did is something bad. Annoyed, Pence tells Bandera to stop with his innocent act just because Noein is present. From what Noein can tell, Bandera's attitude is totally different before he shows up. The man present agrees with Noein, revealing that before Noein arrived, Bandera acted all puffed up and cocky. Noein is relieved to have had Pence watch Bandera, as he is certain that Bandera would cause more trouble. With Bandera free, Noein believes that more victims would be created. Noein cannot wait around in hopes that Bandera would change. He also cannot risk his other subjects or make them live in fear just for Bandera's sake. Noein knows that a lord like that would never be loved. Noein sentences Bandera to exile. Over a few little things, Bandera thinks that exile is a bit too much. Bandera believes that what he did is not that big of a crime, especially since a beastkin slave was the only one involved. Bandera thought that he had finally found an easy place to live. Bandera cannot believe that he is being exiled just because he soured the lord's mood. The moment Noein says exile, Bandera stops even trying to pretend. It is a tough call, but Noein hopes that Bandera will live peacefully somewhere far from his territory. Seeing how Noein is not mad after all he has done, Bandera threatens him, saying that he will spread the word that the Alquist domain is full of lunatics. Hearing Bandera's threat, a spark of hatred ignites within Noein. Bandera continues to run his mouth, threatening to spread rumors of how the lord is a pervert who gets off on a beastman slave and exiles and beats people on a whim. Noein makes up his mind. Using his golem, he crushes Bandera's head. Exiling Bandera was something he could not help. But since Bandera was still one of his people, Noein wanted him to live peacefully somewhere else. However, since Bandera threatened Noein by wanting to hurt his lands or his people, Noein thinks that it is now a different story, since he has to protect his domain and everyone in it from anything and everything, including lies and rumors. With blood on his face, Noein bids farewell to Bandera for good. After taking a life, Noein cannot control himself and starts vomiting. Noein apologizes for his behavior and explains that it is his first time killing someone. Noein wonders why Bandera could not respond to his love and where he went wrong. Matilda comforts Noein, telling him that there are hopeless idiots everywhere, and that Noein does not have to blame himself. Listening to Matilda, Noein then understands that the reason he could not understand Bandera was not just because he grew up isolated from society. As a lord to protect his land and his people, Noein thinks that he will probably have to kill again someday. Looking at what is left of Bandera, Pence tells his lord that he is certain Noein will get used to it soon enough. Reading through the report, Noein sees that his territory now has more facilities across the land, and life for them is now much more convenient. But they are currently facing a new problem, and that is that they are short-staffed and cannot keep running all of the tasks by themselves. More and more lands are just sitting idle since they do not have enough hands for the fields. Sighing, Noein guesses that they really need more people after all. Seeing how stressed Noein looks, Yuri asks him if he is not feeling well. Noein tries to explain what he is feeling but cannot find the right words. Ever since all that happened with Bandera, who never let go of his hatred, Noein has been hesitant about bringing in new residents. Noein wishes that everyone in the world would just be good people. Yuri cannot argue with what Noein wishes, but if everyone were good people, Yuri points out that Noein would not be stuck running the Alquist domain. Noein understands what Yuri is trying to say, but he still feels sad. Pence suggests that they shake it off and keep moving forward. Noein agrees with Pence as he knows that he cannot keep dragging Bandera around in his head forever. Since they are short on hands not just in running the territory but for development and mining as well, Anna is about to burn out from handling the finances and all the paperwork. Noein believes that they do not just need immigrants, they need people who can work right away. The situation places Noein in a tough position to bring in some manpower, which he is referring to as slaves. In the Kingdom of Lodberg, slaves are part of everyday life. 20% of the population has slave status, split about half and half between beastkin and humans. Noein manages to set up a delegation from a slave trading company for the day, and plans on focusing on the slaves who are good at physical labor. Noein also asks the company to bring some educated slaves to assist with his work and Anna's. Noein hopes that some good people end up working for them. "Yes, Lord Noein," says Matilda. A grumpy woman confronts Noein, asking him if he was joking when she was referred to as a slave. The woman then orders Noein to send her back to her parents. Seeing the woman's attitude firsthand, both Noein and Matilda realize that they are in for some more trouble. The president of the slave company states that the slaves they brought are a bit special. The slaves were brought from regions that took a hard hit because of nearby conflicts. The slaves they have are the types of people who normally would not have become slaves. The trader points out that in the current times the type of people they have are not that unusual. Noein understands, but from a trader's perspective, Noein asks if it is not just an opportunity to buy and sell quality stock. For the short term, the trader responds that Noein is correct. However, for the long term, the market is much more stable when the whole kingdom is at peace. More than anything, being a slave is where people end up after they have fallen as deep as they can. The trader believes that being a slave may be even better than death. The trader cannot say that a society where anyone can easily fall into slavery is good. Noein agrees with what the trader has said, since lots of his people came from backgrounds where one wrong step could have made them slaves. If that were the case, Noein thinks that there is not really much difference between slaves and the rest of them. Slavery is a harsh system that treats people like property, but it also gives those who cannot fulfill a commoner's duties, or those born too poor to survive, a chance at the bare minimum of not succumbing to death. It holds both deep darkness and faint light, which is how slavery works in the kingdom. The slave in front of Noein is from a merchant family in a marquis domain. The young lady was sold off to keep the family from bankruptcy. The woman is said to be literate, good with numbers, a graduate of high school, and very well educated. For an intellectual slave her age, it is said that she is top-tier stock. The trader then orders the woman to give her name. The woman introduces herself as Christy. When Christy finally becomes Noein's servant, she throws a fit, ordering Noein to release her that instant. Noein asks Christy if she does not like the room he prepared. Christy states the obvious, that her becoming a slave is very wrong. Christy does not like the thought of being owned by some backwater lord like Noein. Matilda asks for Noein's permission to remind Christy of her position. Noein is grateful but decides not to act now. Christy believes that Noein is just some kind of backwater noble who has no need for her brains. She then confronts Noein, asking him what he wants her to do in his territory. Christy looks puzzled when Noein mentions paperwork. Noein explains to Christy that he wants her to help the retainers who handle management work. Noein states that even a countryside domain like theirs is also a place that has a lot of actual work to run. Noein also wants to clear any misunderstanding, telling Christy that she may get the wrong idea, and that he did not ask her to fill such a role for that purpose, since he already has Matilda for that. Pissed off, Christy throws tons of objects at Noein, as she cannot believe that Noein is comparing her to a beastkin, ordering them to get out of the room. Noein pushes Matilda out of the room, suggesting that they give Christy some space until she calms down. Christy cannot believe that Noein has the nerve to assign her to do paperwork. Christy shouts at Noein, telling him that he can make servants do that, and that there is absolutely no reason for someone like her to be doing that. Even after that, Christy never calms down. After meeting Anna, Christy shouts at her, asking why she should take orders from someone like them, pointing out that Anna only helped out at some little shop. which surprises Christy that Anna was assigned as the head of finance and administration. When Matilda tries to engage in a conversation, Christy becomes angry again, accusing Matilda of making her lose her focus and trying to get in her way. She then continues to lecture Matilda, telling her that her kind should not be acting all high and mighty toward her. When Noein finally notices the shouting, he asks what is wrong. Christy angrily tells Noein how she is sick of playing along with Noein's little frontier hobby project, ordering him again to release her already. When everyone finally gets a little breather from Christy, Bart approaches Noein and tells him that the new servant is way out of line now. Bart states that Bandera was bad news and Christy is pretty much in the same boat as him. Feeling the same way as Bart, Matilda asks Noein if they should get rid of Christy. Noein tells the two to cool their heads off and points out that Christy is not the same as Bandera. Bart looks confused and points out how for him, Christy and Bandera are both awful. Noein states that for Christy, she just cannot accept her fate of becoming a slave and the fact that her parents sold her off and threw her away. Up until now, throwing tantrums probably always worked on Christy's end. Noein's best guess is that Christy is still clinging on to who she used to be. Noein wants Christy to start looking toward a new future in Noeina. Though the task will require some tough love, Noein wants them to put on a little show. Noein then tells Yuri that he will be needing his help with something. Later that night, Christy is sitting in a corner asking herself why no one is coming to save her. A mansion in the best part of a great city, having so many servants, wearing beautiful clothes, having a glittering life. Before Christy came to Noeina, she was of a much higher class than Noein. If that were the case, Christy thinks to herself that at least one person should be coming to save her. Christy then finds a pouch nearby, which makes her think that her luck has finally come around. Grabbing the pouch, Christy starts to run away, telling herself that she finally did it. Christy guesses that a servant may have dropped their wages since the pouch is full of silver coins. With that much money, Christy is certain that she will be fine. Upon reaching the border, Christy plans on crossing it and defecting. The slave brand on her neck is from the kingdom of Lodberg. Once Christy crosses the border, she will no longer be a slave. Tears in her eyes, Christy tells herself that once she is no longer a slave, she can go back to the life she once had. However, before even reaching the border, Christy encounters a monster. Wanting to escape, Christy asks herself if that is her fate. Wondering why her parents are not coming to save her, she waits for them to fetch her. Christy eventually thinks that maybe it is because she is a slave. Lying in her own pool of blood, Christy slowly starts to accept her reality by first accepting the fact that it was her parents who made her a slave. In order for their family to avoid bankruptcy, Christy was sold off by her parents. Since there was no other use left for the youngest daughter, both father and mother were glad that they had Christy, as they were certain that she would fetch a good price once she was sold. No matter how much Christy cried or screamed, no one came to save her. As Christy calls for God, Noein finally appears, stating that he had tracked her when she ran and saw how things got pretty ugly for her. Noein then tells Christy that if she were a slave from his domain, he could help her as her lord. Noein then asks Christy if she wants his help. After a moment of silence, Christy finally accepts her reality and vows to become Noein's slave, swears her loyalty to him, and asks that he save her. After having her injuries tended to, Christy learns that the lord she now serves is an illegitimate child who was confined for 15 years with no freedom and no place to belong. Matilda makes it clear that Noein is not playing some great noble heir's little frontier game. Matilda states how it is quite unfortunate that Christy fell into slavery, but she also mentions that there is one crucial thing Noein has that Christy does not have, and that is the resolve to accept reality. Noein has always accepted reality while still keeping his eyes on the future, always looking forward to a better tomorrow. For Matilda, Noein is someone who no matter what happens works harder than anyone, and who later found his happiness in the land of Alquist. Christy asks Matilda's opinion on whether she can still become like Noein, and if she has the right to be happy at Noeina. Matilda responds, telling Christy that in their territory no one will ever deny her. Noein, who is eavesdropping on the conversation, is glad that Christy changed her mind. Bart then states that the operation have Noein rescue Christy when she goes astray was a success. Though Noein is also pleased that the plan went well, a kobold appearing and attacking Christy was not something they had planned on. Yuri thinks that it is quite unfortunate that Christy got attacked. However, he is certain that Christy would not change unless she was standing at death's door. Noein hopes that Christy will be so happy living in their territory that they will make her parents who sold her off eat their hearts out. Come on, let's take our happy revenge together, says Noein. Bart's main job is to go outside the territory in Noein's place, haul export goods to Ledvik, the capital of Viscount Konitz's domain, meet with merchants there as Noein's envoy, and handle deals and paperwork. Bart then buys whatever supplies are needed and brings them home. At a blacksmith shop, a man thanks Bart for visiting. Bart greets the man and requests new farming tools. Upon hearing that a new order has been placed, the man tells Bart that he will get the master right away and asks Bart to wait. Bringing coffee, the master greets Bart and apologizes to him for making him wait. The reason the master comes out to meet Bart every time is only because he is acting on behalf of the noble client, Noein. Wherever Bart goes, he never gets treated badly. Even so, Bart still finds it weird for a former orphan like him to be treated so politely. Bart is startled when he suddenly hears shouting as the students are looking for their master. The man then scolds his fellow student, warning him not to come out to the front. However, the student doesn't listen, as he sees the master headed that way. When the student finally sees the master, he points at him and says, "There you are." Hearing his student shouting so loudly, the master orders him to shut up. The black-haired student shows his work and explains that he improved the design again, asking his master to take a look at it once more. After putting the drinks down because they were blocking his way, the student then tells his master, "Right?" Enraged, the master calls the student an idiot and mentions that he is talking to an important client, asking him to show some respect in front of the customer. The student is surprised when he hears that there is a customer, but after seeing Bart, the student's expression turns cold and he gives a half-hearted apology for interrupting them. The master scolds his student, telling him to stop making such a blatantly uninterested face. The student then turns to his master, telling him about the plans. Shoving the plans in his master's face, the student points to the parts that he has improved and reassures him that it would work this time. The master punches the student, reminding him again to get to the back while he is in a meeting. Touching his face, the student tells his master that he didn't have to punch him like that. However, the master is still annoyed, ordering the student again to shut it and to stop growing a conscience now. As the student pleads with his master, Bart, who is listening to the conversation, remembers his monologue from a while ago and how he is now being treated as somebody else. The master apologizes to Bart for letting him see such a mannerless act. Bart tells the master not to worry about it and mentions how he has an intense apprentice. The master agrees and admits that he is quite embarrassed about it. The new apprentice is a blacksmith whom the master recently hired. Skill-wise, the boy is not bad, but what the master dislikes the most is how he always acts all the time. The new apprentice keeps yelling about wanting to make something new, causing trouble and getting fired all the time. The apprentice is considered a troublemaker and has been passed around. Curious, Bart asks the master what kind of plans the student had that he was so desperate to have looked at. According to the student, it is a new weapon that will change what war would look like. "A new weapon," says Bart. The master asks Bart if the idea also makes him laugh. The master keeps telling his apprentice to stop chasing pipe dreams and do actual work. Bart doesn't think the same as the master, since he used to be on the battlefield and is actually very much interested in the plans the student drew up. Upon hearing Bart's response, the apprentice interrupts them again, asking Bart if he is interested and would like to see the designs. The master reminds his apprentice again to stay back. The student ignores his master and proceeds to tell Bart about the parts that he has improved. Annoyed, the master tells his student to listen when people are talking and to stop jumping on the customers. The master then confronts the student, telling him that thinking of developing something new is 20 years too early. As a blacksmith, the master believes that they should know when to shut up and focus on training while they are employed, which is also how the master built up his experience. However, the apprentice thinks differently and tells his master that his way of thinking is outdated. If someone has talent for development, the student believes that age does not matter. The student promises that he will build something that would change the world if only someone would give him time. The master curses at the student, telling him that there is no such convenient patron out there. If the apprentice keeps spouting nonsense, the master gives a final warning that he will certainly fire him. Listening to the two argue, Bart senses that they are never going to see eye to eye. However, despite all the fuss the apprentice is making, Bart is certain that he must inform Noein about the plans in the blacksmith. Based on the information in the plans, Bart believes that it could benefit the Alquist domain. 1 week later, Noein visits the blacksmith shop and apologizes to the master for dropping in so suddenly. Nervous, the master tells Noein that he is welcome any time. When the master asks the reason for their sudden visit, he wonders if Noein came to pick up the tools. Noein says that he heard there was an interesting blacksmith whom Bart met the other day and that he wishes to speak to him. The master is shocked, as he did not expect that Noein would purposely come to see his fool of a student. The master explains that the boy is just a dreamy kid with his head in the clouds, someone not worthy of meeting Noein. "Is that so?" says Noein, as he starts sharing how he first started as a dreamer as well, pushing ahead with development even as everyone called Noein reckless. Noein thinks that dream-filled youngsters like him could get along. The master becomes scared, thinking that Noein may take his comment as an insult. After telling Noein that he will bring his student out, the master fetches him and orders his apprentice to introduce himself. The student introduces himself as Damien. After introducing himself, Damien asks if he could head back now since he has already finished introducing himself. "Like hell you can," says the master. Noein asks the master to give the two of them a moment. This surprises the master, but he eventually follows Noein's request. When Damien asks Noein what he wants, Damien becomes honest and tells Noein that he has no idea what he is supposed to say to a noble. Noein repeats the exact line that Damien said the other day. Noein explains that he is interested in the weapons Damien designed. Depending on what Noein hears, he wishes to bring Damien to his domain and provide funds. This sparks excitement in Damien's eyes, as he cannot believe that Noein would actually listen to him. Damien wonders if he is having a dream and if Noein is a god or something. Noein is just glad that Damien is excited, but he remembers that all he said was that he would listen first and then decide. Of course, says Damien. Noein suggests that Damien start by telling him the details and what he is exactly trying to build. The stars of the battlefield are knights and the cavalry. But some say that in war the body count is decided by archers. Infantry with shield formations hold the line. Cavalry breaks the line with superior force. But apart from all that, the thing that most directly leads to death is arrow fire. Projectiles are that powerful. Since it is not realistic to gather large numbers of skilled offensive mages, having elite archers is directly tied to fielding a powerful army. However, maintaining a unit of skilled archers is no easy feat. With swords or spears, one can at least injure someone by swinging and striking. However, using a bow is a specialized skill in itself. One needs the strength to draw the string, the endurance to hold position, and the technique to send arrows flying as fast as needed and accurately. Training archers capable of real combat takes a lot of time and money, which is why Damien plans to create a new weapon that fixes those weaknesses of archers. Damien tells Noein to feast his eyes, showing him the blueprint and calling the weapon a crossbow. Damien states that while some practice is needed, it is nothing compared to archery training. If they really mean it, even a child could kill a knight, says Damien. Noein becomes excited just knowing that a weapon exists where they only have to point it at the enemy and pull a trigger to fire a bolt. If the weapon can be made practical, Noein believes that even their little domain with just one small farming village could field a decent fighting force. Above all, simply knowing how to manufacture the weapon, Noein feels like he would have a huge advantage down the line in noble society. Damien shares how his master hasn't properly readied the plans and that they only made one prototype and didn't even get the time to improve it. I see, says Noein. Damien then asks Noein what he thought of his weapon and if he also believes that he should quit wasting his time on it and do proper work. Noein smiles at Damien. After hearing the detailed explanation and looking over the plans, Noein sees that it has lots of potential. If they sit down and commit to development, Noein thinks that there is a good chance they can get it to a usable level. Noein expresses how he would like to bring Damien to his domain. Noein promises to provide a workshop along with the tools and materials to help develop the crossbow. Noein asks Damien if he is willing to work as a blacksmith in his service. Really? Says Damien. Before Damien gets ahead of himself, Noein tells him that there is a condition. Noein cannot have Damien spending all of his time and energy only on weapons development. Since Damien would become the first blacksmith to relocate to his domain, Noein needs Damien to handle normal blacksmithing as well, such as the retainer's weapons and repairs on ironwork around the territory. In other words, Damien would also have to do the ordinary jobs that he has been neglecting. Despite that, Noein still thinks that Damien would have plenty of time each day for development. Noein asks Damien if those terms are acceptable to him. With Damien turning his back, Noein asks him if he is even listening. Bart believes that Damien will be fine but senses that it wouldn't feel particularly dignified. You're telling me, says Noein. Now with a misfit who has one outstanding talent, Noein thinks that it just feels like the kind of people they attract in their domain. After their meeting, the blacksmith master is shocked upon learning that Noein is serious about taking Damien off his hands. Understanding the situation, the master states that he will be sad to lose a disciple and asks that Noein take good care of him. Although the master says such sad words, he cannot fully hide his look of relief. Sporting a grumpy face, Pence expresses that he wants a wife as well. Surprised, Radley asks Pence where that came from. After watching Yuri and Mai for a while, it finally got to Pence. Radley understands what Pence is feeling since they have already quit being bandits and have settled down. Now that they have become vassals with their own land, the only thing that is missing is a wife. Pence faces Radley as he assumes that Radley is also facing the same problem. However, Pence looks very confused at Radley's expression. Radley reveals that he has actually found someone to marry. This greatly shocks Pence, who asks Radley since when and who the woman is. Radley reveals that his guys invited him over for dinner all the time. One day, Dan's big sister Gina asked him about marriage. Dan's sister is kind and an amazing cook. What surprised Radley is that someone really wanted to marry someone like him. Radley thought that a blessing like that shouldn't be turned down, so he decided to say yes on the spot. Pence asks Radley if he really is serious about beating him to the altar. Radley tells Pence that he is good at everything, which is why he has no charm. Pence is shocked as he cannot believe that Radley is talking down to him. Radley also remembers that Bart whined about it recently, wanting to get married and all that. Bart asks Yuri how he should find a good wife. Yuri remembers that Bart had no trouble with women since his mercenary days, and even now he hears that Bart is friendly with a few in Letvik. Bart explains that the relationships he has with the others are just casual friendships. Yuri firmly tells Bart that normal people do not get as casual as he does with his friends. Bart explains that what the others see in him is not his true self but his package. Bart states that he is a young, good-looking retainer for a rising noble house and even makes good money. Hearing Bart call himself good-looking pisses Radley off. With that in mind, Bart wants to meet someone who actually sees him for who he is, and then wishes to fall head over heels and be united by destiny. After sharing what Bart said, Radley tells Pence that if he wishes to talk about wanting a wife, then Bart would be his guy. After hearing all that, Pence changes his mind as he doesn't really want to be lumped in with Bart. Pence is also surprised when Radley shares how supportive Yuri was. Pence is thinking of taking the chance and thinks that he will bring the topic up when he sees Bart next time. Hearing his name being called, Pence turns around and sees the person he has been talking about, Bart. Pence notices how Bart is weirdly cheerful today. Since Pence has already noticed his behavior, Bart reveals that he has finally met his soulmate. Pence is in total disbelief as Bart too has already found someone. Bart asks Pence if he is willing to listen, as he is very much eager to share. On the first day they met, the woman asked Bart if he would still be working in Letvik after their little rendezvous. The woman also asked Bart if he planned on staying at her place again tomorrow or if he already had plans with one of his other friends. Bart chuckled and said, "Nice way to put it." The woman responded, telling Bart that what she said was true. Curious, the woman asked Bart what type of girl he likes. Not expecting such a question, Bart thought of someone like a nun. The woman laughed, asking Bart if he was referring to someone who is super pure and holy. After putting on their clothes, the woman told Bart that he could drop by again whenever he felt like it. Because of his good looks, countless women have approached Bart. No matter what town Bart ends up going to, he is never short on a place to stay. But in all honesty, Bart wants someone to spend decades with and still care about each other. Bart wonders if what he is asking for is too much. Feeling hungry, Bart goes and grabs something to eat. Upon receiving the meal, the server thanks Bart for the wait and tells him that today's special is stew. Bart is flustered when he tastes the stew, muttering, "This is..." The server asks Bart if something is wrong. Surprised, Bart responds that it is nothing. Bart explains how the stew tastes like home, which catches him off guard, as it is a dish that is really good. The server asks Bart if his hometown is far from their place. Bart responds that it is and doubts that he would ever go back. Bart was an orphan, and as a kid he had a crush on the nun who handed out stew at the soup kitchen. Unfortunately, the nun died in an epidemic. When Bart eats the stew, all of the old feelings come rushing back, the warm feeling, happiness and loneliness. Upon realizing that he is talking out loud, Bart apologizes and explains that what he said came out of nowhere. The server tells Bart in response that she should be the one apologizing for making him remember something awful. Burning up with embarrassment, Bart asks himself what he is doing, dumping everything onto someone he has just met. The server tells Bart that he may return if he wants to. She admits that she might not be able to match exactly what he had as a child, but she wishes for Bart to try a stew that comes as close as possible. The server expresses how she would be really glad if the food they serve can make Bart feel happy even a little. The server is also worried that the food may make Bart feel lonely as well. Now that his heart has been struck, Bart stands up and asks the server if she is seeing anyone now. Flustered, the server stuttered and told Bart that she wasn't. Bart was very pleased to hear it and thus revealed to Pence that he would soon be getting married. After hearing Bart's story, Pence still couldn't believe that Bart had overtaken him. Bart proposed to the girl and she said yes. The girl's father and older brother both gave Bart their blessing, and he had just finished telling Noein as well. Bart is certain that Pence's soulmate is out there and that he should never give up. "Don't rub it in while you're bragging about your love life," says Pence. After his small conversation with Bart, Pence shares it with Edgar, talking about how Bart is always bold or flashy with women, making sure that things never get serious. Then out of nowhere, Bart decides to marry a calm, gentle girl, which Pence believes isn't fair. Pence asks Edgar if he thinks the same as him. Seeing that Edgar is not looking at him straight, Pence asks Edgar if he too has found someone and hopes that it is all a joke. Edgar responds, telling Pence that he is a good guy and is certain that he will find someone soon. Annoyed, Pence asks Edgar who the lucky girl is. Wanting to guess for himself, Pence asks Edgar if it is Anna. Surprised, Edgar asks if it was really that obvious and admits that the woman he is seeing is indeed Anna. Pence has noticed how Edgar and Anna have been sneaking glances at each other so constantly. Pence finds it painfully obvious how the two are both into each other. Edgar is surprised, as he never thought that Anna would be looking at him that much as well, which he finds embarrassing. Edgar becomes worried seeing Pence sit in a corner and asks him what is wrong. Pence explains that Edgar's happiness aura is blinding. Pence has become depressed upon learning that everyone is with someone and that they are happy. Edgar asks if there are others who are getting married as well. Pence shares that Radley went and picked out a bride when he wasn't looking. Pence feels like a tidal wave of happiness hit while he was sleeping. Surprised, Edgar comments that it is wonderful news. Yuri coincidentally meets Edgar and Pence and thinks that the timing is just perfect. Yuri then shares that Mai is pregnant. Hearing such wonderful news, Edgar congratulates the two. Pence has had enough and shares his problem with Noein. Understanding the situation, Noein then realizes why Pence looks so down. Pence clarifies that he isn't down but just feels like he has been left out after everyone found their own partner. Noein then tells Pence that if he still isn't lucky enough to meet someone, then he may remain just like that for now. If Pence has really hit a wall, then as his lord, Noein vows to find him a wife himself. Pence agrees but feels that his pride is hurt. Noein doesn't find it weird that a lord would still arrange marriages for his retainers. After a moment of silence, Pence explains that such arrangements are usually done in the case of older family heads. Having someone more than a decade younger than him do it makes Pence feel kind of pathetic. A maid enters the room, informing Noein that they have finished cleaning up. Noein thanks the maid Rosetta for the report and orders her to take a break. When Pence asks who that was, Noein explains how work has piled up lately, and since it has become too much for Matilda to handle, he has hired some maids. Noein asks Pence if he is interested in Rosetta. Pence pleads with Noein not to do that, as after the conversation they had, Pence feels like it makes him sound desperate. But Pence does admit that he finds Rosetta kind of cute. Noein calls for Matilda, telling her that it is so peaceful and that he hopes it stays like that forever. Yes, Lord Noein, says Matilda. Meanwhile, to the south of the Bezel Great Forest, in a certain village near the border between the Lodberg and Ransel kingdoms, a large crowd is gathered, receiving orders not to let a single one get away, and that it doesn't matter if it is women, children, old folks, or even dogs. The citizens cry their hearts out, seeing their families being killed. A person who is lying on the ground asks the mercenaries why they are doing such horrible things. The man asks if what they are doing isn't obvious. He then states that the villagers look a little too well off, and that is all. The man says that ex-mercenaries like them are not that rare. If the man wants to hate someone, the mercenary suggests that they hate the country for sending mercenaries to die instead of sending real soldiers. The mercenary mentions that they will be staying in the village for the night, and that they will be stripping the village of food and moving on tomorrow. After that, they will head north again and make sure the others get the message.